Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and Innu and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater. I am your chairperson today, and I am joined via Zoom by Michelle Duncan, and to my right is Mr. Ian Mann. Our city assessor today is Mr. Ryan Valderrama, and our recording secretary is Mr. Stephen Lund. To the Zoom participants of the hearing, please note you are placed in the waiting room until your property is called upon. When it is your turn, you will be admitted into the meeting. Kindly follow along on the City of Winnipeg's Board of Revision YouTube channel for the hearing process. Once the host admits you into the hearing, please close or mute your YouTube player. You will then be permitted to speak with respect to your property. Once your hearing has concluded, you can leave the meeting. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparison of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. This morning, we will be hearing items 1 through 10 on our docket. Mr. Lund, would you please affirm the assessor and the applicant?
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Ryan Valderrama.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And Mr. Story, can you please stand? Please state your full name.
Jared Story.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Story and Mr.
Morning.
Valderrama.
Morning.
Okay, our first item we're going to hear is number 1 on our docket, which is 399 Stan Bailey Drive. Mr. Valderrama, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. File number of 22-1228. It has a roll number of 03091615400. It is located at 399 Stan Bailey Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 and using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $32,739,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 2 buildings, 4 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 2020. It has 126 suites with 112 indoor parking and 78 outdoor parking. The zoning for this property is a residential multifamily with a land area of 217,588 square feet, a plan area of 36,435 square feet, basement area of 36,535 square feet, a gross floor area of 146,140 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. Again, on page 4, it has 126 total units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,648.31. The gross potential rent is $2,492,245. Vacancy rate of 4.2%, which is $104,674. The effective gross income is $2,007,571. It has an expense ratio of 37.61% or $897,965. The income has a net operating income of $1,489,606. Applying the capitalization rate of 4.55%, the capitalized income is $32,738,593 or $32,739,000 rounded. On page 5, I do have a few rent comparables. The first one is located at 770 Allegheny Drive. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,596. And on page, the next rent comparable is located at 2945 Pembina Highway. It's an average monthly rent per unit of $1,346. Next one is located at 50 Bison Drive. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,436. The last one is located at 100 Paget Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,781. On the next page, page 6, I do have the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7, I do have the capitalization rate. I'll read through this once, and for the interest of time, this will be applied to the other properties that we will be hearing today, Madam Chair. And so goes with the capitalization rate evidence. If I may proceed, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Valderrama.
Thank you. Capitalization rates. A direct capitalization method is used to convert a property's single year of income into an indication of value by dividing the estimated net operating income by an appropriate capitalization rate. Capitalization rates can be derived from properties that have sold by dividing each property's net operating income by its sale price. For the 2023 general reassessment, using the April 1st, 2021 as reference date, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time adjusted to April 1st, 2021. The assessed values produced by the application of these model-generated capitalization rates were compared to sale prices, and assessment to sale price were calculated. The resulting ratio statistics for the assessment and taxation department's income-producing models satisfy the standards specified and set forth in the Standard on Ratio Studies, which was approved in April 2013 and published by the International Association of Assessing Officers, or IAAO. ATD's capitalization rates are further supported by comparison with real estate market reports from Colliers International Canada, CBRE National Research, and Cushman & Wakefield. The following chart compares ATD's capitalization rates with the published rates by fitting ATD's rates into the property type categories used in these reports. ATD's property type classes are more comprehensive so that they cover every property type in the city. The 20th and 80th percentiles show the range of capitalization rates used by ATD for 60% of the parcels within that specific property type. In many cases, the published rates fall within 20th and 80th percentiles, indicating the tenability of the capitalization rates derived by ATD. And in the chart, we'll see different sections, different property types. If we move down the schedule or the chart, it has the multifamily section down, but second to the last or second to the bottom. All of the range of capitalization rates for all property type for multifamily range between 4.8 to 5.6%. I do have some capitalization rate evidence or sales for multifamily properties. The following is a sample of actual place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner-reported income and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. So the first one is located at 2390 McPhillips. It was sold on October 9th, 2020. It was sold for $19,400,000. It has 90 suites with a year built and effective age of 2015. This sale translates to $215,556 per suite, and it has a rate of 4.79%. The next one is located at 700 St. Mary's on April 7th, 2020 for $1,035,000. It has 9 suites. It has a year built and effective age of 1961. And the sale translates to $115,000 per suite. It has a calculated cap rate of 3.6%. The third one is located at 203 Bertrand. It was sold on June 14, 2019. It was sold for $925,000. There are 9 suites in it. It has a year built and effective age of 1963. The sale translates to $102,778 per suite, and a calculated cap rate is 4.77%. Next one is located at 55. It was sold on November 26, 2018. It was sold for $1,575,000. It has 16. It has a year built and effective age of 1955. The sale translates to $98,438 per suite, and a calculated cap rate for that is 5.74%. The next sale is located at 677 Maryland. It was sold on December 15, 2020. It was sold for $2.4 million. It has 32 suites with an effective year built of 1913, effective age of 1972. This translates to $75,000 per suite, and the calculated cap rate is %. Excuse me. The last one is located at 32 Arden. It was sold on March 1st, 2019 for $2,875,000. It has 23 suites. Has an effective or a year built, an actual year built of 1969, an effective age of 1984. The sale translates to $125,000 per suite and a cap rate of 5.05%. On page 9 is the permit. It was added, or the building was added to the roll effective March 1st, 2021. And on page 10 to page 14 are some interior photos of the subject property. And I think, yeah, that's it. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Boardroom.
Thank you.
Mr. Story, did you have questions of the assessment?
I have some questions. Thank you. Mr. Boardroom, have you visited this property?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Now just one small detail. It's actually built in 2021, is it not? Based on the permits, you're showing 2020.
It was added to the roll effective March 1st, 2021.
Okay, all right, so in terms of the workup on page 4, is this all model generated?
Yes, they're all model generated, with an exception of a review of the potential rent. It was reviewed, and it was adjusted to reflect actual that may have been in the 2020.
Okay, and just to be clear, Madam Chair, we're not actually disputing the rent. So the rent was overridden by a person at the city, but the balance of the inputs are model generated, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Is there anything in your evidence to support a 4.2% vacancy rate?
This is a model generated vacancy rate, and without any income and expense submitted, there's no other support except that it is a model generated vacancy rate. And all the
Okay.
other rates, Madam Chair, if I may clarify too.
Okay, but did you look to any third-party reports to determine if that rate was appropriate? Bills?
I would say this vacancy rate is based on the income and expense that were all submitted to us, and these were further reviewed by in our department. So it's based on market as well.
So you use post-reference income and expense to determine the vacancy? Or is
No,
it?
this is model.
Okay, it's model. Can we agree that based on that rent, that would be a higher rent? That would be on the top end of rents in Winnipeg, would it not?
For the area and the features, and of course, it's almost relatively brand new.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is not the highest there is in Winnipeg, but it is in the higher range.
Okay, and can we agree that at the reference date, property is competing for it's called the top dollar, the higher end of the market, experienced higher vacancy than properties that were more affordable? Does that make sense? Do you agree with that?
I cannot comment on that one without actual evidence.
Okay, well, we can get to that in my presentation. Now, the expense ratio, 37.6, I know it's modeled, but did that not strike you as low when we know that this is a property that is indeed competing in the higher end of the register? Would that seem low, even by the model standard?
It is low. I would comment as it is low, yes. However, it is a brand new building. Any or a lot of any maintenance issues on this one or any expenses?
Sorry, so this property has common areas like gyms and fitness centers. You have that in your evidence, and that's true. It has an elevator, it has underground parking, and it has balconies. So typically properties with a higher degree of amenities that are competing for a higher at the higher end of the rent scale typically require greater investment, greater cost by the owner to maintain those or subtend those rents. Would you agree with that?
This is a relatively brand new building. That's what I would agree on, and the maintenance on it. I wouldn't assume that it is a lot in terms of percentage. It may be big in terms of dollar amount, but in terms of percentage, I would say it may not be. It may qualify as within the lower range.
Okay, and this cap rate falls outside of your 20th percentile. Is that correct?
Let me just double check on that one, Madam Chair. Oh, it froze. Sorry. What's the 4.55%? Yes, Madam Chair, it is. It fell outside of the 20th percentile. However, as mentioned in the page 7 of the capitalization rates, what we posted between 4.8 to 5.6% range is only 60% of what we have, or the inventory stock that we have.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that's a low cap rate, but we'll get to my presentation. Now, one thing I couldn't help but notice is you're at about 260,000 per door. Did that not strike you as quite high for this property in terms of the assessment?
It is high. However, if we look at my cap rate evidence on page 8, we can see that 2390 sold for $215,556 per suite, and it was built back in 2015. And it even has a higher cap rate of 4.79%, and this one is relatively brand new, a 2020 effective year built. So I would say it wouldn't strike me as unusual.
Okay,
So it was more of unexpected.
okay, so we'll argue about the cap rate on McPhillips, but you're not suggesting that a building built in 2015 and a building built between 2020 and 2021 would have a market different price per suite, would you?
Well, again, as I mentioned, this is a newer building compared to 2015 built. So it's 5 years in the market versus a brand new. So
Okay.
I would say that it is the brand one is more valuable compared to a year built of 2015.
Okay, can we agree that the underlying principle of economies of scale would dictate that as the amount of units go up, in this case, the number of suites, that the price per unit should ultimately go down? Can we agree on that?
Without an evidence or any chart indicating to that, I wouldn't be able to comment on that, Madam Chair.
Okay, so, but your model does typically account for economies of scale in some capacity, does it not?
I'm not aware of any of that, so I don't know,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Can we agree mathematically at least that 126 suites compared to 90 suites would be 40% more? Mathematically, strictly. Can we agree on that?
No, mathematically, yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So, oh, and then one other thing. Now, we're not arguing the rents, but just something that I notice in the city's evidence sometimes, sort of bounce around here. But on page 5 of your evidence, Mr. Valderrama, when I see the gross floor area per unit, that's erroneous because it includes amenity space as well as common area, fitness rooms, correct? So that's, and I guess my question then is, does that affect the model if that number is indeed erroneous?
I am not sure. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have that information.
Madam Chair, I have some rebuttal to the assessor's cap rates. And again, this, as Mr. Dupont has asked, if we could just go through this once and have it carried through. Is it appropriate to handle
No,
that now?
we're going to do that rebuttal at the end.
Have a rebuttal then? Okay. Then I think those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions of the assessor?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mann, did you have any questions?
I do have some, and keeping in mind that capitalization rates are going to be an issue with respect to this property, and likely some of the others perhaps, what I explore here can apply to all properties, so we're not repeating ourselves. And that's okay, Madam Chair?
Yes, go
Thank
ahead.
you. Mr. Valderrama, I'm looking at your capitalization rates on page 7. And I see that I'm looking at paragraph 2, the resulting ratio statistics for the assessment and taxation departments income producing models satisfy the standards specified and set forth in the standard on ratio studies approved in 2013, paraphrasing by the IAAO. I'm just want to explore a bit of that statement. The standards specified having been approved, or at least they meet the standards. How do you know that, or how is that determined? Is there an independent audit? Is there a checklist published by the IAAO, or how is that standardized? Can you tell me?
I believe there was a publication on that one. I just haven't had the time to really look into it. However, it was reviewed by our department and we fall within the standards of it. So I think that's just, it was reviewed by someone else, not myself particularly.
Okay, thank you. The cap rate studies that, or the chart on the cap rate also at the bottom of page 7, these property types, and I'll focus on the multifamily, these multifamily high-rise, low-rise, low-rise A and low-rise B are all properties that have been sold with the income stabilized or the income and expense stabilized, and these fall in Winnipeg, or are they Winnipeg and surrounding areas?
And these are all in Winnipeg. That's our jurisdiction, I believe, sir.
Okay, and the numbers that have been produced, as you already said, are between the 20th and 80th percentile. But the, might just have one moment, please. The time adjusted sale price, the sale prices, time adjusted sale prices are not noted here. Perhaps on page 8, the time adjusted sale prices aren't as relevant or aren't as necessary because there's only one sale in 2018. But are you aware of what formula is used to give the time adjusted sale price for the chart on
No,
page
I don't
7?
have.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have that information. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine. The number of sales for the cap rate chart. Are you aware of the number of sales that are reflected in those that range of cap rates?
On page 7, sir.
On page 7, yeah. I'm wondering if the ones on page 8 have been incorporated into the cap rate chart on page 7.
I believe with an exception of just a handful or a few of them, the number, I don't have the number of the or properties that were included on page 7. However, we just noted that it is the 60% of the entire investment stock that we have around Winnipeg.
Okay, I'll ask that a different way. The chart that is on page 8 that has been a sample sales, not used for comparables, but that chart and those properties would they be reflected in the chart on page 7 under the multifamilies?
I am not sure, sir, if all of them are included. I'm pretty sure 700 St. Mary's wouldn't be. The McPhillips one is 4.79 and Bertrand is 4.77%. I'm not sure if they are rounded up to reflect 4.8, which is the lowest of the spectrum in the 20th percentile
Right.
of the 60% of the parcels. So I cannot, I'm not 100% sure if they will be included or excluded in the range, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And just a couple more questions on the chart on page 8. The cap rate was determined by the stabilized owner reported income and expense information. These are the mailers that the owners send to the city every year.
That's correct, sir.
And so an average or stabilized income and expenses were taken and applied mathematically with respect to the sales prices as reported in land titles?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just continuing on now on page 9 and 10, the permits. I don't see a value attached to these permits for, are we just getting from page 1 of each of the permits granted? Or
On
is there-
page 9, these are both occupancy permits, sir.
Oh, yes, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Boldorama, just a couple of questions. One regarding your vacancy, which is at 4.20, correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Correct. And that is model driven?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So this building came on 2021? Or I guess in
Madam
your
Chair.
brief, you've got 2020. So I'll stick to your brief, 2020, correct?
2020 is the effective or year built, and we just added it to the roll effective March 1st, 2021.
Okay, thank you. So would any consideration be given towards the vacancy rate with the new build in terms of the lag startup usually associated with new apartment buildings?
I believe in this case, Madam Chair, it was already looked at. However, without the actual income and expense mailer, we wouldn't be able to determine what really the actual percentage of vacancy this property experienced.
Okay, so you don't know whether any incentives were offered?
No, I have no information, or our department has no information with regard to that one, Madam Chair.
Okay, I thank you. On your page 8 for your capitalization rates, would you say that 2390 McPhillips would be the best comparable? Given the age and the number of suites?
Could be. However, I mean, if we look at the location, this is by the northwest side of the city, and the subject property is towards the southwest portion or section of the city, which is right now it's more of I would say a where the activity is right now, Madam Chair. So it's kind of more desirable, southwest side of the city, from what we've been gathering in the market much of the moment. So yeah, I would say it may be a close one. However, in terms of location, there could be some varying I would say maybe an argument would be made in terms of the location, because these are both different market sections or market locations within the city.
Okay, and you provided pictures of this apartment building to us, exterior and interior, and you would agree
Yes,
that
that's the
it's,
bottom.
yes, and thank you, and you would agree that it's a luxury building?
It's really nice, Madam Chair. I would agree to that. So luxury, it all depends on how we define luxury, but it is really nice.
Yes, and I would agree with that.
Mhm.
So it has many amenities, as was pointed out by the applicant, correct?
It's also in the brief, Madam Chair, towards
Yeah.
page 14. So there are some
Yeah.
amenities in it, yes.
So do you know if McPhillips has those same amenities?
I am not aware, Madam Chair, of that information, if what amenities are in there as well. So
Oh.
no.
Okay. And that is all my questions. Thank you, Mr. Valderrama.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
If you would like to proceed with your brief,
Yes.
Mr. Story.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So again, here we are at 399 Stan Bailey Drive. We are again in the southwest, and certainly it is a we'll call it a higher end apartment build. It's new. We've not made any adjustment for condition or anything like that. It's a good building. It's brand new, and it's in a good part of town. It has 28 one-bedroom suites. Now, when I get to my cap rate evidence, we might see that might be a concern going forward, but that's the build. There's 22% one-bedroom suites, 98 two-bedroom suites. The city is suggesting a value of 32,739. We are suggesting 27,059,000. And the reason for this is because we've looked at it on a site-specific basis, and we do note that so we mentioned the sort of, and dovetail into my cap rate evidence here. We noticed when we looked at the market for this cycle, from a cycle over cycle basis, that first of all, the citywide average vacancy according to CMHC is 3.8%. We've seen an adjustment to vacancy. Vacancy typically was very low in one bedrooms. It's now become much higher in one bedrooms, much lower in two bedrooms. Once we get to three bedrooms and beyond, we start to get back to the higher vacancy. And of course, the suites that rent for that have a higher ticket price, let's say, have a more limited market. So even though we've just mentioned 2390 Phillips, and the Southwest may very well be a more affluent section of town than the Northwest, we are talking about renters. So we're talking about the rental pool in each quadrant. what we've noticed, and I've included this in my cap rate study. This is on page 40. I'll just get through very quickly. Vacancy rates for newer units was 7.4%, which would suggest that newer projects are being absorbed at a slower rate. We're seeing a high amount of new units coming on stream, and we have considered that in our conclusions. And this is from the CMHC rental market report released January 2021. So with that being said, we have used a vacancy and collection loss of 5%. We have not disputed the potential gross rent. We think that it's reasonable. It's about $16.50 per door, and that's in line with this market at the reference date. However, the city has used 4.2%. We have used 5%. Now, to bring that into perspective, 5% of 126 is about 6 units. I think 6.3 units, and then 4.2 is about 4. So we're not worlds away here, but we are recognizing that higher end apartments typically carry a higher vacancy rate. And Madam Chair, you're absolutely right. There's a lead up time or a ramp up time, but we've tried to consider stabilized vacancy over the life of the asset over that first holding period. In terms of expenses, I think the assessor did note that perhaps the modeled expense ratio is low. We've used 40%. That translates to an extra roughly $40 per door. We've used $947.53, and that's based on a rounded expense ratio of 40% as opposed to the assessor's 37.6. Now, the crux of our argument here is going to be the cap rate. We are suggesting that new builds ought to carry a cap rate of no less than 5.25%. I neglected to mention this in my questioning of the assessor, but you'll notice that in his evidence, the low rise A, the only firm who's put out a table for low rise A is indeed CBRE, and they're suggesting 5.25 to 5.75. So we've applied 5.25. That's commensurate with our research. The balance of my brief is just the interior photos, and again, these are marketing photos. There's no issue with condition here. So ultimately, we are accepting the market rents. We are adjusting the vacancy to 5%, which may be optimistic, but I think it's more reasonable. And then again, we believe that at least an initial expense ratio in this initial holding period of 40% makes sense. Again, 5.25 are the cap rate that we're using. So you've all been provided with our cap rate study. I think you've all probably heard this before, but I'll sort of try and hit the high points. So in terms of our process.
Excuse me, Mr. Story, I'm just looking for the cap rate study.
Yeah. Let me know when you're ready and I'll proceed.
Okay. Thank you.
Good to go?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So every cycle, for appeal purposes, we do research between the reference dates. So our first page shows us that the city is actually in their first. What they tell us, what they tell the owners, is that their cap rates actually range from 3.85 to 7.4. So the assessors are talking about the 20th and 80th percentile. But in their guide, what's called the Valuation of Income Producing Properties 2023 for the general reassessment, they suggest that cap rates range from 3.85 to 7.4. Now, of note is that we don't see any actual sales. We don't see any actual calculations. So we conduct our own research. We start by looking at our conclusions from the previous cycle, as well as the conclusions of the brokers. Page 2 shows you the brokers bifurcating low rise A, low rise B, high rises, and so forth. And what we effectively see is that the compression in cap rates cycle over cycle from April 1, 2018 to April 1, 2021 is between 0 and 25 basis points. Now, where we see the most compression would be on high rises. High rises clearly are the most efficient way to build. So that's where we're seeing most of the cap rate compression, and it is typically between 0 and 25%. When we look at the properties that we have to review, and determine if their assessments are appropriate. There are a number of factors that affect the cap rates on a site-specific basis. We look at each of the properties that we represent individually, and we consider the building type and construction. Now, this is a good building. There's no issue there, but I do note it is wood frame construction. We've made no adjustment, but clearly masonry is superior to the wood frame. So we do consider those factors. More pertinent factors would be things such as garden style apartments, multiple buildings, row houses. Those properties typically carry a higher risk profile. And there are more costs borne to an owner. Heritage status is not on the docket today, but we do consider that that may be a potential risk. Amenities. Now, we did see tenant preferences change. This property does satisfy the new tenant preferences. Some of the others that we'll see today do not, but this property does indeed have in-suite laundry. It has a fitness room, and it has meeting space. And to answer your question, Madam Chair, that is very similar to the Lady Joyce on Phillips. It has very similar amenities. It is built within the same vintage. We talk about durability and quality of income. Now, this is an interesting point. When we look at new properties, they are typically at the apex of their earning potential. If we looked at an older building that may have some topside potential, it may have lower risk than a newer build, which is, we haven't made an adjustment here, but it's an interesting concept where if you consider that a property is at the very top of its earning potential, the challenge then is to subtend that income and to ward off attrition through spending on the property to ensure that it meets the highest standard in order to compete against other properties. But in terms of the top end economic opportunity, typically you'll see more economic upside on properties that have the potential to be repositioned. Age, condition, parking, none of those are a factor here, but clearly those are factors that would affect the risk profile of an asset. Suite mix, again, we do see a tenant preference shift, and we can see this by the vacancy rate. You can see one bedroom from October 1 of 18 went from 2.9% average vacancy to 4.3. That is unusual. Two bedroom vacancy went only from 3 to 3.4. And then the three bedrooms, so that would typically encompass the newer townhouses, have seen a big drop in vacancy, particularly from October of 19 down to 2.5%. So I note that doesn't count collection loss, but it is interesting. And I did mention that the newer builds are indeed seeing slower absorption at 7.4%, which supports our 5% in this case. Suite size, the number of suites, external factors, those are all clearly factors that affect the market. Supply and demand, again, so the other exercise that we've been going through is since the previous cycle, we've been tracking development applications and permits. So we have a very, very robust document that shows us the development pipeline for new units coming on stream. We have it segmented by quadrants, and it's actually included in our material here, should you like to discuss it. But effectively what we're seeing is a huge amount of supply coming on stream. We haven't made specific adjustments to any individual property in that capacity, but it may very well be why we're seeing such low compression cycle over cycle. There is a huge amount of new supply coming on stream. In terms of sales that we've used to inform our position for this cycle, included them on page 6. Now, 2390 McPhillips is a very interesting property. I will sort of focus my attention there. I don't think we're arguing Corridon or Maryland, but 2390 McPhillips, when it sold, our initial position was that sold at a 5% cap rate based on a pro forma that it was put out to the market and based on the resulting sales price. However, when we dug into that sale, we noticed that both the vacancy and the rents were below market. So putting ourselves in the position of a prudent purchaser who would recognize that there was, as I said, topside potential on a new build, which is somewhat rare. once we adjusted those rents simply to a CMHC level and the vacancy to a CMHC level, that cap rate recalculates to 5.6%. And we suggest that that's something we may be seeing going forward as we look to strengthen cash flow positions. Cap rates should ultimately decompress with all else being held equal. We have that calculation here. The bottom section of page 6, those are the 5 cap rates that were agreed upon in the previous cycle that informed our position that we ultimately settled at. So with that being said, with all those factors taken into consideration, we do suggest that for new builds, 1999 plus 5.25% is appropriate. And so that is how we've determined a reasonable cap rate for this property. Now, I mentioned in my questioning of the assessor, the sales price per door on McPhillips, and I do note that our cap rate of 5.25 does indeed bring our sales price per door to a what I'll call a reasonable level. I think the assessment is too high, and it's predominantly based on that extremely low cap rate. I think that's my presentation. I suppose we'll get into cap rate rebuttal after, but that's my main evidence. I thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boardroom, did you have any questions with the applicant?
Yes, Madam Chair. There was a quick comment regarding top end. This one is receiving a top end revenue. Would you agree that this is a brand new building in terms of when it was built, right?
It's a new building, yeah.
It is a new building, and would you agree that newer buildings would dictate or would somehow give a direction on how much would be the top end dollar to pay for the rent?
I think the market would dictate what the top end of the rent would be. They wouldn't be able to charge more than what the market would bear. That's what I would say.
Okay. And in terms of the cap rate, you mentioned the settlement, cap rate settlement. Which page was that one? You mentioned there was a cycle, the previous cycles, and these cap rates are all assessment cap rates, correct? Previous assessment cap rates.
What do you mean by previous assessment, like the previous cycle?
Yes, previous assessment cycles, cap rates.
Right. So we're showing our position and how it's evolved cycle over cycle as we're showing the
on page 5.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry to interrupt, but that's on page 5, right?
Yeah.
And these were all settled in a process where it is done in confidence or confidential, correct?
We've always
at the municipal board.
Yeah, we've published this in our previous cap rate study, and I believe in ones prior to that as well. So yeah.
And on your 2390 McPhillips cap rate determination, there so you used the CMHC market studies on vacancies and revenues and all that to determine the cap rates for the 2390 McPhillips?
Yes. So okay. So we used CMHC and I think I explained this, but I'll say it again. We tried to put ourselves in the mind of a prudent purchaser. So when this property came to market, during the due diligence process, we can imagine that we're below CMHC. Now, it's as I mentioned, it's reasonably rare to see a topside economic opportunity to raise rents in a brand new building. So those rents were low. Those rents were subsequently raised after acquisition. So we can't put them to a rent that was being achieved post-reference, but we can certainly recognize a motivation to purchase an asset where the rents were below, at the very minimum, CMHC averages, and then enjoy that topside economic potential. So that's why we use CMHC, because at a bare minimum, an investor would look at that property and say, well, you know, the vacancy is very low, but the rents are very low. So what if we were to charge market rents and adjust the vacancy to market? And when we do that, we come to that much higher cap rate. And now we had based on the NOI that was put to the market that was being achieved, it calculated to a 5% cap rate. When we adjust to CMHC standards, it becomes 5.59%, but it is certainly not 4.79% from our perspective.
Would a prudent investor look at the performance, the actual operating performance or income performance of an apartment block such as the subject property instead of and compare it on how it performs in the market?
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly what I'm saying. They would have looked at the performance they would have looked at the performance of the property and recognized that those rents were below CMHC. They would have recognized a topside potential. This is a national REIT who purchased this property. It wasn't a mom and pop who bought a $19.5 million property, right? So they would have seen that opportunity.
Right. And wouldn't a prudent investor look at something more safe in terms of on his investment or his or her investment, such as maybe a low cap rate?
Okay, so let me just ask you this. When you looked at the sale and you've included it in evidence, did you follow up with the owner and did you follow up to see if those rents were indeed raised? And if they were, clearly they were, would that not indicate to you that that is what transpired, that purchaser purchased that property to enjoy that upside economic potential?
The way it was calculated, well, I mean, I'm not giving evidence here, but however, would you think that in calculating a cap rate, you would use income performance from the previous or a complete 1 year income performance prior to the sale date?
Well, yeah, that was what was put to the market. You're suggesting estimated NOIs that are time adjusted. So I don't think there's anything untoward about using a pro forma that was put forth by the vendor's broker to the market to sell which at the time was a $20.4 million property that effectively sold for $19.4 million. I don't see anything untoward about using an NOI that was reported by the seller's broker. They didn't pull the number out of the air, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So would you agree that we should be using actuals instead of a CMHC guided rents or cap rate in terms of looking at sales?
Yeah, I think we should be
to determine cap rate.
Yeah, I think the basis of our exercise here today is determine market value, and market value is based on real world behavior. So what actually happened in the real world with this transaction? We know what happened. We can see what happened. So to suggest, well, the rents were too low and the people who bought it were just going to maintain those low rents for the holding period, which is not what happened. That would be wrong, frankly. That would be the wrong way to approach this property.
I have no more questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Ms. Duncan, did you have questions of Mr. Starry?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hanna.
I do have some questions. I'm looking at the both cap rate study and charts. First of all, in your calculation of site-specific cap rates, do you have access to the income and expense mailers that the city is provided every year?
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It depends if it's a client, then we typically would, and if it had been submitted into the public record through appeal and we have access, then yes. Otherwise, we might use CMHC as a baseline. We would try to replicate market behavior. So if the data was available to the market, we would use that data. If there was a pro forma again that was circulated, we would use that as a basis point. So I suppose it's safe to say that our data would come from multiple sources, potentially.
And the pro forma, the accuracy of the pro forma, for example, you're at the mercy of the person who was presented that pro forma.
Sure.
Now, I'm looking at page 7 of your cap rate study. Sorry, I'm just going to have to get back there now. I'm scrolling between two documents here. Your Altus cap rate study, well, first of all, on scroll to page 7. Your good location best rate cap is 5.25% from 1980 till 2021.
Yes, for both high rises and low rises.
That's correct. The city I know uses a range based on dropping out the lowest 20 percentile and the highest 20 percentile, giving you the 60% in the middle. Do you do the same calculation, or do you do the same limiting aspect?
No, so these would be again our baseline cap rates. I mentioned some of these factors, so we might adjust upward for some factors that would be considered negative. We're going to see a social housing property today where we've adjusted the cap rate upward, but these would be what we'll call our baseline cap rates. We bifurcate by age. We look to high rise and low rise. We in this market we don't have a ton of sales. Ultimately it would be best if we had row house sales, if we had townhouse sales, if we had high rises and low rises. But this is our chart that we've used cycle over cycle. And when we determine our conclusions, it's by looking at our previous position, compression in the market, and sales that have actually occurred. Now, I don't know how the city bifurcates by age. That's not known to us. We simply know that, and I don't know that they bifurcate by high rise and low rise. I believe they just apply a blanket rate from what we understand.
Okay, picking up on something you just said, 5.25%, for example, from 1980 till 2021. That's your baseline. That's your best property.
Yes, absolutely.
And although you say, or although your report indicates that Altus will consider site-specific adjustments based on certain factors, any of those adjustments will, as you said, go up. It won't reduce the cap rate.
They may go down if there's a property that has been, well, to be quite honest, if a property had a cap rate applied by the city that was higher maybe than what we would apply, we likely wouldn't appeal it. So there's that to consider as well.
Okay, well, I wasn't talking about comparative with respect to, I was just talking or asking about page 7 of your report, considering site-specific adjustments based on the following factors. All of those adjustments would make the cap rate go higher based on your presentation of cap rates. Is that fair to say?
That's fair. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Continuing on the cap rate evidence that you have provided, I'm looking at the other market reports that have been done, and your 5.25% base is a 25 basis points higher than the one presented in the Collier's report.
Sure. Yeah. So Collier's, from our understanding, and as has been presented to this board, Collier's tends to include obviously the higher grade investment properties, which is not an issue here. That this one would certainly fall in that range, but they also include closing costs. And from our understanding, that would have the effect typically of adjusting the cap rates that are reported upward by 15 basis points. That's what's been reported. So yes, they're reporting 5%. Though we understand that they may be as high as 5.15% if we consider closing costs in those transactions.
And presumably they're working on the same data that you are, same pool of data.
I'm not sure. I would imagine that we're
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Is there any allowance in your base of 5.25% for outliers?
Properties that might sell below?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, if we saw that, we would consider it for sure.
Okay. I just didn't see that allowed for in your cap rate study.
Right, so we have to look for sales that are not encumbered by any, atypical financing, sales that are, they're clean market sales that are non-arm's length. So these are the sales that we have, and they're not, we haven't presented any outliers here. You're correct.
Arm's length sales, not
Sorry, not yet.
sales. Yes.
Correct, yes.
Okay. I just have one moment, please. And just for my clarification, the McPhillips Street sale, the Lady Joyce.
Yeah.
That you initially had calculated based on the pro forma as 5.0% cap rate.
That's our initial position, but which we've since evolved, yes.
Okay, and that position evolved as a result of access to what data?
So in rebuttal, the city of Winnipeg, okay, so just to go back, the city, as you know, does not present calculations on their cap rates. However, they did provide calculations in rebuttal, those INEs for the last 3 years. So we were able to look at the stabilization that was done by the city in rebuttal, not in direct evidence. And that is where we saw that the rents that were being achieved were in fact below CMHC. So that is the genesis of our how our position evolved.
Because of a comparison of the actual rents to the CMHC recommended or suggested rents,
Correct.
or market rents.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have two quick questions. Did you have a chance to inspect this property?
Did not inspect it, but I did visit it. So it was not inside it, but I did visit it. I went to the site and had a look, but I did not walk through it. I think the photos are a pretty good indication of the quality. We don't have an interior quality issue, so but I did visit, yes.
Okay, and you have a vacancy at 5, which is higher than the city's at 4.2. So
Yes.
can you speak to the vacancy? Do you have any direct knowledge
Well,
that the building is suffering vacancy?
I wouldn't say it's suffering vacancy, but again, 5% of, at 126 units, that's about
You're just
6
using a standard.
units. We're using a standard, I'm careful not to submit any evidence verbally here that's post-reference. But we do know, obviously, we handle the property, we know where the vacancy for these types of properties is at. It's supported by CMHC. At January 1, they did say that the absorption rate is very slow for these newer properties. Anyone who's analyzing the apartment multifamily universe in Winnipeg knows that there's a dearth of affordable housing. That's the main issue. Now, in terms of the higher end, they're clearly, just by virtue of the fact that it is on the higher end, there's a smaller pool of renters. There's a larger amount of stock. People are not necessarily building brand new affordable housing, particularly not in the Southwest. They're building the higher end. We see rental incentives becoming more aggressive in this cycle. So if the citywide average, which includes all matters of income capture at 3.8, which doesn't account for collection loss, then I think 5% is very fair, particularly when CMHC is telling us 7.4 is where the new product is at. So that is how we've used it. It's all of the INEs are post-reference. So we have to use our best estimate, and I think it's supported by the market.
All right, thank you. And you have rebuttal?
We do, yes.
And Mr. Valderrama, did you have any rebuttal evidence?
No, I don't, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank
Mr.
you.
Story, I don't have any of your.
I think Henry sent it in.
I don't have an email from him.
Are you sure?
Quite positive. We
Huh.
can take a quick recess.
Would you mind?
Yes. We're just going to take a 5-minute recess right now. Thank you. And I would like to call this hearing back to order. And Mr. Story, I think we are going to go with your rebuttal evidence now.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I will be quick, as we've spoken about 2390 McPhillips a fair bit. I think you'll understand that so at page 1 of our rebuttal here, we do note, as I mentioned, that the property was bought with market rents, with rents that were below market. And we do notice that they were increased So we have redone the cap rate. Our calculation is on page 2, showing the effect of adjusting to CMHC rents and vacancy. And again, you can see very clearly that it does become a 5.59 cap when we adjust for those below market rents. Now, I will point out it hasn't adjusted our conclusions, but we are suggesting that the assessor's cap rate of 4.79 that they're using in support of their cap rates today is too low. 700 St. Mary's, we investigated that sale, and we've now become aware that the property was purchased with the intention to renovate. We spoke to the property manager. The purchaser was a first-time buyer, and the property was in rough shape with the previous owner doing very little for repair. So in our supporting documents here, we do have a letter from the property manager stating as much. So that is here for you. Sorry, I'm just trying to find it here. And of course, we do have the board order stating the property is purchased for the intention to renovate, should not be considered in studies as they represent an atypical motivation. So the property is not purchasing the purchaser is not purchasing the property for the income in place, but rather for the ability to repurpose or reposition the property on the market. And that letter from D7 Property Management is on page 17. Is that 17? Sorry, it's 13, page 13. It's just co-making some other writing here. So that is the letter from D7 in support, showing that property, I believe that the assessor maybe said that property wasn't included in the study, but at any rate, when we see that very low cap rate of 3.6%, typically that would indicate that the property was purchased for the intention to renovate. And when we investigated that sale, that indeed was the case. 32 Arden, this is interesting. This property was originally in our cap rate study. And then the assessor brought up a very good point about missing laundry income as it would turn out. So based on the fact that the data was not complete and that there was some question about that missing miscellaneous income, it was removed from our study, but the city has kept it in. So, and that's again reasonably low cap rate of 5.05. So I just wanted to make those points clear, and that is our rebuttal. I thank you.
I thank you. Mr. Valderrama, did you have any questions of Mr. Story regarding the rebuttal?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'm just looking here. So the 2390 McPhillips, is it your position that the actual rents of 1339 is below market?
The rents at 1339 is below market. Yeah.
Yeah. And in calculating the cap rate, we calculated or we stabilized 2017 to 2019, and yet you used CMHC rents with regard to calculating the NOI.
That's correct. We use CMHC. Typically, it is our position that I think that in your when you gave your presentation on cap rates, I think you said that you take time adjusted sale prices with estimated NOIs in a single year. Our position for the properties that we present typically would be to stabilize 3 years of income and expenses to determine a stabilized year. But in this case, because it's a sale, we're trying to determine what the cap rate is. When we noticed that those rents were low, we adjusted them at a baseline to CMHC, even though after the sale, those rents were increased beyond CMHC.
Right, and the time adjusted, if I may just clarify that, Madam Chair, that was for the model derived cap rates. The cap rate evidence on page 8 was as is. We did not time adjust any of the sale price. Whatever is written on this page 8 as a sale price in the sale price column, that's the actual sale price that took place during the. And with regard going back to the 2390 McPhillips rebuttal, you mentioned that you did not use the actual methodology that you're usually using in valuing appealed properties, as I understand, is that correct?
Okay, so.
So you
again,
use the market on this one. It's not the site-specific information.
we're trying to
that you
determine
used.
the motivation of the purchaser and what the cap rate would be. So you can see on the far left, with an NOI of 978.69, which is what the pro forma indicated, the cap rate becomes 5%. When you use CMHC, the NOI becomes 1,084,665, and that indicates a cap rate of 5.59. So we're looking at the motivation of the purchaser. We know that they raised the rents after acquisition. So if we know that, and if the city would have investigated that sale, they would have known that too, and you would have seen that that cap rate is significantly higher than 4.79. So yes, that is the experiment that that is the exercise that we conducted in order to determine an appropriate cap rate for 2390. Yes.
If I may just clarify, so it's not site specific in terms of finding when you're on your cap rate study, it's not the site specific NOI determination methodology that you're using. It's
Again, we've adjusted the cap rates to market, we've adjusted the rents to market.
And in terms of the model, you think that it's not reflecting the market, the model that we have generated.
Your model?
It's not determining the market in terms of particularly City of Winnipeg.
We have very little details about how your market or how your model operates. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure what your question is. If I ask you about the model,
No,
like we don't know.
No.
So
well,
so
it's more of, it's just based on what expense mailer come to us, and some whatever methodology, whatever statistical methodologies in there. However, the 2390 McPhillips, I noticed also that there is a stabilized R&M for 800 per suite. Is that correct?
yeah.
Which excludes the repair and maintenance of the elevator.
It would exclude CapEx, yeah, and all of our R&M excludes capital expenditures.
And yet in the subject property, you were arguing for a higher expense ratio of 40%.
I'm using 40% for the subject property. For Stan Bailey, yeah, we're using 40%. That's correct.
And that doesn't include elevator maintenance.
No, that's for repair and maintenance, not capital expenditure.
No, it's not. But
I think
elevator
your model, Mr. Calderama, your model typically applies 39.7% or something like that. So I don't think we're worlds apart on the expense ratio.
My expense ratio, if I may just clarify that one, Madam Chair, is 37.61.
Yeah, but it's typically higher for new builds, in my experience. And it's typically higher when we talk about properties with a higher degree of amenities. It's typically higher when we have properties that are performing at the higher end of the register. That's
all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions of Mr. Story?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann.
Just a couple with respect to the rebuttal that you filed on the 2390 McPhillips.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at the amenities there in comparison with the amenities for the subject property 399 Stan Bailey.
Yeah.
The amenities at Stan Bailey that do not seem to be present at the 2390 McPhillips would include a gym, underground parking, storage lockers.
Nope, there's underground parking at 2390, but there's not a fitness room. There is we'll call it social room.
Which the one at
Bailey
has as well, yeah. Okay, thank you. No, that's all I have.
I just have one question, and you may have spoken on this, so forgive me if you did. So you're saying that on this McPhillips property, they had lower rents prior to the sale, correct?
Yes, they have very low rents and very low vacancy.
Okay. So my question is why?
I'm not sure. It wasn't our client. I'm not exactly
Okay.
sure why.
It just seems odd to me that they
Yeah.
could have commanded a higher rate on this. Why didn't they?
I don't know, but I do know that it was purchased from a private operator by REIT. Knowing what we know about the fact that the rents were increased, and it's in a good location. It's in the well, it's what we'll call the Willoughby Phillips
Yep.
triangle, or I suppose it's called the Templeton Sinclair area. It's one part of town, so I know it very well. It's grocery anchored. It's right next to the Walmart. It's built in behind the Cadillac dealership, so it's pretty safe and secure. And it's also very, very close to Seven Oaks Hospital, which would be considered a positive. So it's a desirable property. The rents were what they were at the time, and I'm not sure what the motivation was, but we know that the vacancy was very, very low and the rents were low as well.
Okay. Do you know anything now about the property in terms of they've raised the
Yes.
rent and the vacancy is still low?
Don't know about the vacancy, but I know that the rents have definitely been raised. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. Thank you. That's all my questions. Do either of you have a wish for a summation?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Just well, thank you very much for listening to this large presentation, and we'll hope that this cap rate discussion goes forward. But we do suggest that for these new properties, 5.25 is appropriate given what we know about the market. And yeah, that is my submission as opposed. Thank you.
And I thank you both. We are going to move on to item number 7 on the docket, 765 Osborne Street. And Mr. Valderrama, whenever you are ready.
And let me just go open my file here. 765, Madam Chair.
Yes. Yes, item 7.
Item 7. All right, I got it. Got it open. Okay, shall I proceed, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. The next property has a file number of 22-3121. Excuse me. It has a roll number of 12-002-352-100. Excuse me. The property is located at 765 Osborne Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $759,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with a liability. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 2 stories, effective and actual year built of 1954. It has 8 suites, 5 outdoor parking. The property is zoned as residential multifamily. It has a land area of 4,422 square feet, a planned area of 2,201 square feet, a basement area of 2,190 square feet, and a gross floor area of 6,592 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 8 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $875.54. The gross potential rent is $84,052, has a vacancy rate of 2% or $2,690. It has an effective gross income of $81,362 and of 47.32%, which is also $38,500 in terms of dollars. The net operating income for the property is $42,862. The capitalization rate is 5.65%, and the capitalized income is $700,619 or $759,000 rounded. On the next page, I do have parables. The first one is located at 646 Osborne Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $864. The next one is located at 141 River Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $929. Next one is located at 390 Stradbrook. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,017. And the last one is 460 Osborne Street. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $927. On the next page is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. And on page 7, capitalization rate chart, which was extensively discussed earlier. Also goes with the page 8, capitalization rate evidence. On page 9, beginning page 9 to page 11 is where the 2020 income and expense mailer is, and that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valderrama. Mr. Starr, did you have questions of the assessor?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Mr. Valderrama, have you visited this property?
No, I haven't.
Okay, and can we agree that typically when, this is on page 1, the actual year built and the effective year built are the same? That means that there's been no substantial permitted work that's been either calculated or observed in order to change that effective year by the city? Is that a fair comment?
It wasn't changed for whatever reason. There could be a lot of reasons, so I'm not just confined to those. So I cannot guarantee 100% if.
Okay, and I'm just going to quickly over to page 4. This is all model derived, correct?
Page 4, yes, they're all model driven.
Okay, and so did you consider the actuals that were submitted to you by the owner when coming up with this valuation at all? Did you review them?
At them, and it looks like the actuals is higher in terms of NOI if we're going to derive the NOI for 2020.
The actuals are higher for the NOI?
It will be if it is recalculated because mortgage payment is not included in the calculating net operating income, which is already at 42,102.
Nobody's suggesting mortgage income or mortgage payments.
Mortgage payment. But if you're suggesting that the NOI should be what's the NOI on this one? Almost how much? 0 or close to $100 or something? No, it's.
I'm asking I'm asking if you had, for the purpose of this exercise today, had you taken the information that you have on file and attempted to stabilize it to determine A, an appropriate rent, B, an appropriate expense ratio? Or if you just
the model looks like is close to if this is recalculated, the 2020 income and expense mailer would be close to the actual net operating income for that year alone.
Okay. Page 5, are these rents reported or are they modeled?
These are all from actuals,
These are
except for the
actual
subject
rents.
column, except for the subject column.
Okay, so instead of using the actual rents for the subject, you've used actual rents from other properties to support a modeled rent for the subject. Is that correct?
It is to look what the average monthly rent per unit is within the market region for the subject property.
Okay, I understand that, but that would beg the question then why wouldn't you just use the actual rents that are being reported by the subject property?
Well, upon review, it's the model is almost pretty close to the actual 2020 anyway, the NOI at least.
Okay, I think I will save my comments for my presentation, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Just have one, Mr. Valderrama. This is 8 suites, correct?
8 suites as per our record, Madam Chair, yes.
Right, and 6 of those suites are 1 bedroom, which are less desirable, correct?
I'm not sure about the comment on less, but yes, it has 6 1-bedroom units. And if I may continue, less desirable, it is located on Osborne Street. So of course, I mean, there's always a market specific on that area. and one bedroom maybe appealing to certain type of renters. And of course, I mean, Osborne Street, we're familiar with the area, and it's quite an attractive area for single or maybe a couple. So a one bedroom suite would suit a big chunk of the market segment in the area too.
Okay, do you have any evidence to support that statement?
No, I don't. I'm just it's
Okay.
just a comment or an
That's
observation,
your opinion.
Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. And there's a sale in 2018 of 731,000. Is that, was that arm's length? Or can you
I
speak
believe
to?
so, Madam Chair. I just didn't include the information on this one,
Okay.
on the specific sale.
Okay, I thank you, Mr. Valderrama.
Thank you.
Mr. Story, if you would like to give us your presentation on this.
Hey, 765 Osborne Street. So again, we have, let's see here, sorry, in terms of our suite mix, we have it misrepresented on the first page. Yeah. Yes, I think the assessor is correct. It's 6 and 2, 6 one bedrooms, two bedrooms. Now, in terms of that sale, though, I didn't look into that, and I'm not sure that that's a sale that would be at market, so I didn't consider it. And I don't know if it was a portfolio sale or not. So at any rate, we are at the what we'll call the end of South Osborne. The building was built in 1954. I went and had a look at it on in this past week. Again, it's wood frame, and it is it's typical of a mid 1950s sort of older shoebox apartment with a low suite count. We do note that when you have a low suite count, perhaps there's some increased risk as costs are spread across a lower base of renters, but we haven't adjusted our cap rate. We've used 5.75. Again, the property is 68 years old, low number of suites, wood frame construction. And again, we have this saturated multifamily universe. We've taken 3 years of income and expenses. That's on my page 10. And we've used the actuals. So the owner doesn't break out vacancy. It's simply included. So the potential gross rents average 76,260. There are discounts. Now, when we see discounts, it's because the owner is permitted to charge a higher rate, but the market, again, will not bear anything above what the tenants are willing to pay. So when we stabilize the potential net market income, we come to 78,034. The assessor is using 84,000 and then applying a modeled vacancy. Our effective gross rent is 70,034, of course. Theirs becomes 81,362. We do note that we pick up some income by way of laundry, parking, and what we'll call miscellaneous. So that brings us closer together still with an EGI from our side of $80,004 to the city's modeled assessment of 81,362. We have stabilized the expenses in our chart into that column that says subject stabilized. We note that the stabilized R&M is $1,853 per suite. That is somewhat high, but again, it is an older building, and as a building becomes older, we can expect that the repair and maintenance would indeed would be higher. So our expense ratio becomes 59.2% when it's stabilized, which equates to 47,358, giving us an NOI of 32,646, capitalized with 5.75 or 5.75 cap rate, leads us to an indicated market value at the reference date of $568,000 rounded. And again, basically our cap rates on this one, I think the city's at 5.65, we're at 5.75. So I suppose the difference is that we've used the actuals as reported by the owner, where the city has used the model. So we do ask that the board defer to the actuals, the actual performance of the property, and we do respectfully submit that the value ought not to exceed 568,000. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Valderrama, questions?
A quick one, Madam Chair. So on this property, we're looking at the actual performance of the property instead of looking at the market in
Yeah,
terms
so
of deriving NOI.
Sure. So for this one, I don't know if you caught this, but what I was mentioning was they are permitted to charge a rent higher than what they're achieving. However, they're having to discount it back because the market will only bear, what it will bear. So in 2020, the potential market gross rents are 78,034. Though it would appear that they're, they have clearance up to just a touch north of 89,000. So yes, in this scenario, we have a good market test of what the market is willing to bear in this property.
I have no more questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
Yes, I do. With respect to your workup on page 10,
Yes.
I see that you have averaged the rent, the potential rents increase every year from 2018 through 2020, and you've taken an average of those 3 years. Top line coming up with your average.
We're using 2020, the most current year.
In 2020, your potential gross rents were 89,133. The number that you have indicated here is, you must be looking at the wrong column.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's just that you're missing the discounts right below there. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's the clearance that they have, less discounts.
Okay.
Comes to 78,034. So we will use the present year's rent. And for certain items in our workup, we will use the most current year. So utilities, typically utilities are going up every year. So we use the most current year for utilities. We use the most current year for insurance, and we use the most current year for the real estate taxes. But otherwise, we typically stabilize 3 years into a what we'll call a stabilized year, and that helps to eliminate outliers and create a stabilized typical year. Yeah.
Okay, then help me out here with respect to line 15, management fee.
Yeah.
Average 3427, subject stabilized 4,000.
Yeah.
That's
So
5%. That's the city allows.
that's
Or the city.
industry standard is 5% of each. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
I'm just going to ask you, Mr. Story, do you have any information in regards to that sale?
No, I don't. I didn't look into it. I should have. I suspect it may be a portfolio sale, but I'm not sure.
Are you thinking it could be connected to the next property we are doing?
No, I don't believe so. But I know that this owner was acquiring properties, and there were a number of portfolio transactions. I'm curious as to why the city didn't put in a sales mailer if indeed they had a clean sale here. But I'm not considering that sale, but I will certainly look into it. But I note that there's a sale slightly before it that's a fair bit lower. So
Yeah.
not sure exactly what's going on there.
Okay. So on page 10 of your workup under repair and maintenance, line 27, it went up significantly in 2020. So I'm assuming that there was some renovations done.
Yeah. So that repair and maintenance, and you can see that we've stabilized that where they spent 24,460. We've stabilized it to 11,117. And I'm sorry I neglected to mention on page 11, I have our actual repair and maintenance breakdown. So we were talking about CapEx versus R&M in a previous file, and you can see this is the exercise that we perform in order to back out CapEx from R&M to make sure that we're not overstating the repairs and maintenance per door, and not including any capital expenditures in that calculation. And again, that's itemized on page 11 for you on a site-specific basis.
Okay. So you were suggesting lower quantum than the sale.
Like, again, I don't know about that sale, so I'm not, I did not consider it, but based on the performance of the property with the 5.75 cap, I'm quite comfortable with the value that we're suggesting.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions. Do either of you have a wish for a summation?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then we are going to move on to 760 Osborne. Mr. Valderrama, whenever you are ready.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The next one has a file number of 22-2177. It has a roll number of 12-001-350-100. The property is located at 760 Osborne Street. We're dealing with the roll year of using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $2,119,000. The property is classified as residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1956. It has 24 suites with 15 outdoor parking. The property is zoned as residential multifamily. It has a land area of 16,967 square feet, a planned area of 6,107 square feet, and a basement area of 3,530 square feet. The total gross floor area for the property is 21,851 square feet. On page 3 is the photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 24 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $817.77. The gross potential rent is $235,518. The vacancy rate is 3.2% or $7,537. The effective gross income is $227,981. And expense ratio is 46.09% or $105,076. The net operating income comes to $122,905. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.8%, the capitalized income is $2,119,052 or $2,119,000 rounded. So on the next page, I do have some rent comparables. The first one is located at 26 Roslyn Road. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $852. The next one is located at 1139 Grant Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $940. The third one is located at 80 Roslyn Road. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,168. And the last one is located at 304 Sherbrooke Avenue. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $872. Next page is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. Page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. Page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And on page 9 to page 10 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
I thank you. Mr. Storm.
Yes, thank you very much. Mr. Valderrama, did you have a chance to visit this property at all?
No, I have none. I have no time, or no chance, sorry.
It's okay. And can we agree, though, that this property, like the last property, has a what I'm going to call an inferior suite mix and an inferior parking ratio? Is that fair to say?
I wouldn't be able to comment on the inferiority of comparison to the other property with regard to this property.
And you've included a sale here again without any supporting data. Is it fair to say that that's a partial interest sale?
I have no further data on the sale, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, doesn't it look like that sale that you're suggesting here in your evidence happened on the same day? That sworn value would likely, I haven't done the math here, but I think that's probably the sum of the consideration on both items. Is that correct?
Without any other information on this one, I wouldn't be able to address or answer the question, Madam Chair.
Okay, and a question you might be able to answer then is based on the IAAO standards that you've mentioned today and some other part of your evidence, would that preclude you from using a partial interest sale in your evidence?
Again, as I mentioned, it was there. However, I wasn't able to get more information or research more information regarding the sale on page 2.
Okay, but that's not my question. My question is, according to the IAAO standards on verification and adjustment of sales, which you reference in your cap rate material, does it not say in that document that assessors are precluded from using partial interest sales?
Again, I'm not sure if this is whatever the information is with regard to this sale. So I don't know if it is a partial sale or full sale or whatever whatever kind of sale this is. So
if it is a partial interest sale, are you precluded from using it?
I don't have an information if it is a partial sale or not, Madam Chair. So
Okay, all right.
how would I say it should be or shouldn't be included?
Okay, well, we're just asking about the IAAO standard, but I think my question has been, I think I'll move on.
Thank you.
In terms of, I think, can we agree then page 4, this is all modeled, is that correct?
Yes, these are all model derived
Okay.
parameters.
And no consideration to the actuals submitted by the owner?
Well, upon review, the actual is higher compared to our model. So I still
it's
stuck
not.
with the model derived.
What part of it is higher? You've said that twice now. What part of the actuals are higher?
Year-to-date actual on page 10. Current profit or loss, it's $128,462.
So you're equating that to the NOI?
Just a quick glance at the line-by-line items. It looks like with no mortgage payments in it, looks like it's an NOI.
Okay, all right. And again, you've used the rent comps on page 5. You've said that those are actuals, correct?
As far as I know, yes, they are correct. They are actuals.
So you've used actual rents from other properties as opposed to the actual rents in the subject, correct?
Correct.
And can we agree that when the suite mix is not exactly the same, you're going to end up with a distortion? So for example, when I look at item or comp number 2, where you have 12 2-bedrooms and 4 1-bedrooms, that is going to bring the average rent per unit up, is it not?
Up. Yes, and so goes with the other comparables where for example on 3 and 4 there's 1 bedroom and 3, so probably there's a little bit of a pull downwards on the average.
And
so
you don't
goes with
adjust
the
for
first
that,
one.
right? And so you don't make any adjustments for that, correct?
It's reflected in the actual average monthly rent per unit.
Okay, all right. Okay, talk about your cap rates and I think those are my questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have questions of the assessor?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nunn.
I do with respect to the mailer at page 11, page 9 of 11, the repairs and supplies, call it the same repairs and maintenance, repairs and supplies. That is about just over $1,000, maybe $1,100 per suite. That seems low for this building.
Sir, it is 1,100. It is what's registering in the actuals. However, I'm still relying more on our model in terms of the expense ratio as a total. So yes, it 1,100 seems to be the rate for this property. Whether
Okay.
it's low or not, that's the actual for 2020. So I'm not sure if I would be able to comment more with regard to that being low or high.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. And I have no questions. If you would like to present your brief,
Thank you very much. Okay, so we're at 760 Osborne, right across the street from the last property we discussed. Now, this property was built in 1956. It's a 3-story building. It has 22 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. So it's a bit of we'll call it an atypical suite mix. It's 760 Osborne. It's masonry. It's on the east side of Osborne between Rosedale and Balfour, and this would be considered Riverview. So we're getting into the end of South Osborne. It is, of course, being used as a multifamily residential building, and it has 16 outdoor parking stalls. So turning to my page, page 8, we have accepted the 5.8% cap rate. So cap rates, I think this is the only file on the document today where cap rate is not in dispute. So 5.8 is acceptable to us. So just move on to the income on page 10. You can see we've again performed our stabilization. Here we've included 17 to give you a sense of the history of the property. Now we've applied a market vacancy to this property, which I believe to be quite low at 3.2%, and it's not in dispute. The assessor is using that same figure. You'll notice here that the potential gross rents are not discounted as they were in the previous property. So those are the actual rents that are being achieved. Market vacancy standardized at 3.2%. Though we do pick up laundry and parking income. So the actual performance of this property from a effective gross income perspective is $219,173. As I mentioned, we stabilize the most recent 3 years leading up to the reference date for most items. So in some cases, we will use industry averages, which is accepted, such as 5% for management. We will use the most recent year for utilities, for example, as well as insurance and taxes. So when we use the actual expenses, they come to 108,134. City is suggesting 105. That leads us to an expense ratio of 49.3%, giving us an NOI of $111.38. With that 5.8 cap rate, we come to an indicated market value of $1,914,456, which we then round, of course, to $1,914,000, which is our request here today. And again, this is effectively a matter of looking at the actual expenses and the actual income. On page 11, I've provided that detailed repair and maintenance breakdown. So you can see how we've stabilized the R&M per suite over a 3-year basis to $1,512. And of course, that's the R&M less CapEx and waste and snow. So it's about $1,500 per door. And that has been applied in our calculation. Balance my brief for the supporting income and expense documents. You can see we've taken the actual, starting on page 17, we've taken the income and expense statements, and in that, with those red highlighted labels, those correlate directly to the R&M sheet that we've included in our brief for you to show that that's actually calculated and stabilized with the real numbers. So again, we do respectfully submit that the value not exceed $1,914,000, and with that, I'm open to your questions.
Thank you. Mr. Valderrama.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just on the revenue side, on page 10.
Yep.
So the potential market gross rent is the 2020, if I'm not mistaken, the actual 2020.
Yep.
And when we include laundry and parking income, they all go down to, they all go up to 225,300.
Oh, I'm sorry. We actually, so for this one, we see that 20 is a low year. It's lower than 19 and 18. So we've adjusted that upward. So typically we see rent escalation in apartments if all is going well. In this one, we see that the rental income is in 17 it's 209, 18 it's 222, 19 it's 223, in 20 it's 218. So we have taken an average to bring it up higher than the most relevant year. You are correct. It is adjusted upward.
Okay, and the market gross rents, they're all actual receipts, right?
The effective gross rents?
Effective gross rent, sorry. Yeah. They're actual total receipts of the property, of the rent that they have received for the property. 217,000, 223,000.
Right, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And then you applied a market rent or a model derived rent of 3.2%.
Market vacancy, yeah.
Of 3.2%.
That's a CMHC vacancy that doesn't include collection loss. That's yes, and that again, I believe that to be fairly low. We know that the citywide average is 3.8%. We have, for the sake of narrowing our arguments, I suppose we've accepted your vacancy and we've accepted your cap rate in this instance.
So this one on the revenue side, there's a mix of or hybridized methodology where it's actual and a model derived 3.2% vacancy.
I wouldn't call it
deriving the EGR.
Yeah, we're applying a very low market vacancy. You can see that the vacancy is oscillating between 0.3, 1.82%. So when we apply a market vacancy, we are looking to stabilize that over the economic life of the asset, and not necessarily capture a moment in time in terms of vacancy. It's a stabilized allowance. So that's what we've used. It's the same number that
that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann?
Just looking at the expenses, your page 10 for the stabilized over the 3 years, $36,277.
Yeah.
The 2018 expenses of 47,000 are significantly higher than the 2019 and 2020. I know you've got the work up here.
Yeah.
What was there in the repairs and maintenance that was so significantly higher? Painting?
Yeah, so if we go through this page with the itemized breakdown, we can see that there was some flooring that was done. Okay, there's painting, correct? Plumbing was done. Well, actually, plumbing's not that much higher. HVAC appears to have been done. Well, they have an item called remaining R&M at 18,551. So I don't have the itemized breakdown of that, but we took the R&M total in that year, excuse me, and then removed the CapEx and waste and snow, and it comes to 1,845 per door. So that's still in range, but for this, for the purpose of stabilizing, we're using 1,512. So I'm not sure what the exact items in that in 17 or why it was higher, but we have tried to stabilize it to normalize it to be certain. So you can see that 17 and 18 were higher, but we are, and then 20 was lower, but we are using about 1,500 per door, which I think is reasonable, if not a touch low for a property of this vintage.
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
Thank you. So some renovations took place.
I'm not sure. It would appear that it's maintained, but yeah, it's
Something took place.
Sure. Yeah.
Due to the expenses.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Boardroom, I'm just going to redirect to you, indicating that this property had this sale that we're not sure about. And then it appears that this property had some renovation. Would that not trigger an inspection on the part of the city?
Unless we were there was a permit that was opened or pulled, Madam Chair, that may trigger, because we have no way to know if there was any renovations done unless it was done through a 311 inquiry or through a permit that was pulled from PPND, Madam Chair.
Okay, so to the best of your knowledge, no permits were taken on this property.
With regard to recent renovations and all that, I am not sure if there were any.
Okay. I thank you.
Thank you.
Do either of you have a wish for explanation?
I have none, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. And we will move on to Mr. Story's last property, I believe, 601 Osborne Street. Mr. Balderrama, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-25. The property has a roll number of 12-011-112-000. The property is located at 601 Osborne Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $16,000. It is classified as a residential 2 with a liability of grant. The parcel use code or the property, a residential apartment with 1 building, 18 stories, with an actual and effective year built of 1973. It has 205 with 32 outdoor parking. The property is zoned as residential multifamily. Property also has a land area of 58,490 square feet, a planned area of 8,882 square feet, and a gross floor area of 112,933 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 204 total units with an average monthly rent per unit of $658.51. The gross potential rent is $1,612,032. The vacancy rate is 3%, which translates to $51,585. The effective gross income is $1,500,447, and the expense ratio is 53.03%, which is $827,505. The net operating income is $732,942. Using the capitalization rate of 6%, the capitalized income is $12,215,700 or $12,216,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables. First one is located at 1305 Taylor Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $916. Next one is located at 64 Nassau Street North. Its average monthly rent per unit is $718. The third one is located at 641 Stafford Street. Its average monthly rent per unit is $980. The last one is located at 99 Roslyn Road. Its average monthly rent per unit is $725. On page 6 is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. Page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. On page 9 to page 12, partially, is where the income and expense mailer is located. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Balderrama. Questions, Mr. Stern?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Boardroom, have you visited this property?
No, I haven't.
Is this a seniors residence?
I'm not aware of what kind or what type of residence this one is.
Okay, but just, okay, so you're not aware then. Okay, okay, I'll leave that for my comments. In terms of the suite mix, would you agree with me that that is an exceptionally poor suite mix?
That is a very subjective comment if there would be, but I'm not sure what would be a superior or
Okay.
inferior
So
mix.
if an investor was looking to purchase a high rise like this, and they were looking for a potential to escalate the income, do you not think that having 170 bachelor suites would give them some pause? Do you not think that would preclude them from achieving higher rents in the future? Do you think that would be an incurable deficiency?
Again, that's a hypothetical scenario. So it's an if and it's in the future. So I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen in the future or what the
Okay,
what
can we
ifs.
agree then that bachelor suites? Okay, do bachelor suites rent for less than 1 and 2 bedroom suites typically?
Of course.
Okay. Okay. And can we agree then that this property has 1 parking stall for every 6.5 units? So basically 1 stall for every 7 units mathematically. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. And would that be considered a negative from your perspective?
Again, it's a parking stall, so I'm not sure if everyone in this has a car or needs an access to it. So I don't know if it's a negative or a positive.
You're not aware that it's seniors residence. Are you aware that it's social housing?
Again, without inspecting the property, so I wouldn't be able to know if it's or social housing.
You could Google it, right? Or you could see that it's owned by Manitoba Housing, correct?
It is owned by Manitoba, as stated in the owner.
Right, okay. The vacancy rate, do you have anything to support that 3.2 in your evidence?
It's a model derived vacancy rate.
Okay, and the cap rate is model derived as well?
I think this one, it looks like it isn't, but I'm not 100% sure. It's 6%, so it looks like it is adjusted, but I'm not positive about it.
So you're not positive, okay.
100% positive, but it looks like it is.
So, you're not familiar with this property, but so then you're not aware that the front part of this property has what I'm going to call a common room, an activity room, so to speak, multi-purpose room?
I wouldn't be aware of any.
Okay, and typically when the city on page 5 determines what they're calling the gross floor area per unit, that is simply a calculation that divides the gross floor area by the number of units, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, and that gross floor area includes that large front section and the other, what we'll call, not just the hallways and stairways and whatnot, but the actual the multi-purpose or common areas. The common areas are then divided by the number of suites to come to that gross area per unit, correct?
The gross floor area per unit, no, I'm not aware of the calculation, sorry, but the gross floor area, the total, is just the total number of floors times per floor area. Yeah, but
Right.
the gross floor area per unit, I am not sure if it is based on that one.
Okay, you're not sure, but can we agree though
No, I'm not.
that a gross floor area of 550 square feet would typically be very small in this apartment universe? Can we agree on that?
Well, if you have a bachelor units, yes, it looks like it is low, big or small because of bachelor. They're dominantly bachelor units.
Right, and if we took out those common areas, as I'm suggesting, that 554, which is already low, would become even lower, would it not?
Again, common areas are included in the calculation, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to comment.
Okay, all right, so I think I'll leave my comments for my presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions of the assessor?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I also have no questions. If you would like to proceed.
Yes,
Mr.
thank you very
Stern.
much. Okay, so here we are at 601 Osborne. I've got some photos in my brief. It is indeed a purpose-built social housing property that was built for seniors, and that's why the suite mix is as it is. It's 136 bachelors, 68 one bedrooms, and then they record one 2-bedroom. So that is the breakdown. I'm going to suggest that is not what we would call a desirable suite mix in today's market. I've included a number of photos. These are newer photos from online. I mentioned that multi-purpose room. You can see this is where the folks have their library. It's got some plants, it's got a shuffleboard. This is that main section that fronts onto Osborne Street. So it is not typical of a market apartment and should not be treated as such. The suites, again, are very small. By my recollection, they are about 450 or 460 square feet on average. So again, very small, typically geared towards single occupancy. And it's a large development. Again, it was built in the early 1970s for the purpose of social housing for seniors. There are only 32 outdoor parking stalls. As I mentioned, that leads to one stall for every 7 units. So based on the fact that this property is social housing, that it does not have any typical amenities, that it has been operating with no history of economic profit over the past 49 years, given the fact that it has what I'm going to call a suite mix that is inferior at best, which is predominantly bachelor suites, 136 of 205. I'm suggesting that the cap rate be adjusted to 7% to capture the fact that this would constitute a very, very risky investment to the next potential purchaser. Now, the way that we typically treat social housing is we review the assessor's potential market gross rents. And if they are indeed, they're typically within 25%, 20 to 25% of CMHC, they're typically below CMHC, then we accept them. We understand that they would fall in the lower range. In terms of vacancy, the assessor has used 3.2. I've used 4.2. Again, we've established the citywide average without considering collection losses, 3.8. We do note that core vacancy for bachelors at the reference date is 4.4, with 1-bedroom vacancy at 5.4. So we've used 4.2%. Now, in terms of the expenses, we've accepted the figure of 827,505. Now, based on the fact that our EGI is slightly lower, based on that 1 point in the vacancy, ours calculates to 53.6%, where the city is at 53%. The city is using a 6% cap rate. We are suggesting 7%. Now, I'll just go very quickly. Again, now that leads us to an estimated market value of 10,240,000. Now, this is a piece that you haven't seen today. It's on page 19. This is our section called capitalization rates for affordable housing. The property is social housing. It has what we're going to call basic or utilitarian finishes. It does not have air conditioning. The suites are very small. It is not built to a market standard, nor was it ever built to compete in the market. And of course, as we've established here today, we have an increasingly competitive multifamily market in Winnipeg. I've included the MMB order A02330, which quotes an excerpt from the Appraisal Journal, January 96, which says that low investment grade apartments warrant a higher yield and overall rate than conventional apartment properties. The applicable rates tend to rise with the presence of each of the four characteristics attributable to these properties. And they are low cost or low quality construction, advanced age, declining or blighted neighborhood, and low income tenancy. So we support that further with a text. We have an excerpt by Mr. Richard Polton, published by the Appraisal Institute, where the author discusses the appropriate methodology in determining market capitalization rates for social housing compared to what we'll call conventional market apartments. And he says, developing a market-derived cap rate for an income restricted property begins with an analysis of the available rates for similar unrestricted properties. Then these rates are adjusted based on the risk factors an investor would consider in developing a cap rate based on the market factor and associated risk. So effectively, what they're telling us is we should look to the market for to determine our market cap rates, and then adjust upwards based on the fact that these properties do constitute a what we'll call a riskier investment. I've included two municipal board orders here, and it's interesting. In the first one, the assessor was suggesting. Now it's interesting because it's a similar argument that we're going to have today, where the assessor will typically say, we've adjusted the rents to in their model to what we'll call the lowest income quality. And that's fine, but the assessor effectively says, well, the owner should be satisfied then. We've adjusted the rents lower than what they typically would be. But when we've seen these cases go to the municipal board, we see that the agents are suggesting that cap rates should also be adjusted upward to reflect what we'll call a riskier investment. Again, we talk about higher cap rates in this first order, A02330. In this instant, the assessor was suggesting that a 9.5. This is some time ago, back to I believe 2021 or so. Or sorry, 2001, when cap rates were much higher. And the agent suggested 11.5. So a fairly high basis point adjustment. And ultimately the board ruled 10.5. So a 100 basis point adjustment. It's very similar to what we're talking about today. We have a second board order here that suggests that, again, in deriving a appropriate cap rate, here's the quote that I did reference. The assessor noted that the degree of uncertainty inherent in the subject's net income had been reduced by using market rents at the low end of the range, higher vacancy, and allowing expenses that were higher than would be expected. But he did not adjust cap rate. Again, the agent pointed out that the subject represents a high risk investment and requested a higher cap rate, so 11%. In the summation, it says the board is of the opinion that a cap rate of 9.5 doesn't adequately reflect the fact that the subject is more of a high risk investment than the comparables, and they awarded a 11% cap rate. So in those two cases, we see the assessor capturing the fact that the property is social housing either by using a higher expense ratio and a lower rent, and in some cases a higher vacancy, although typically a lower rent should lead to a lower vacancy. We believe that those decisions, as well as the supporting literature from the Appraisal Institute, provide us with some guidance in terms of how we ought to treat these properties. And in this case, we have adjusted the cap rate to 7% to recognize some of these items that we've discussed. The very, very poor suite mix, with a high predominance of bachelor suites, which are not typically desirable in our market, a very, very low parking ratio. And as we've mentioned, the first property we looked at today had a high degree of amenities. This property has virtually no amenities. So in terms of the next prudent purchaser purchasing this property, we have to recognize that the market would see this as a very, very risky investment. And so with that, we've adjusted our cap rate to 7%, leading us to an indicated market value of $10,240,000. And that is my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Balderrama, questions?
I have no new questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is a question or observation, but on page 19, there's a statement in there that these buildings would be high risk because they are located in declining or a blighted neighborhood.
That's one of the considerations for social housing. I wouldn't suggest that that is the issue here. It's certainly not a blighted neighborhood.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it was built in 1973. Was it actually built for
Yes.
social
It's a
housing?
good place. Yeah, it was. It was built for social housing at the time.
Okay. And you were in the building?
I've not been in it, but I've looked at the condition reports. I wanted to visit it this time, but we're sort of very careful in the COVID area not to visit retirement homes as best we can. But yeah, but I have read condition reports. I've seen photos. It feels a pretty good sense to be of the property.
Okay, I thank you. Do either of you have a wish for summation?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Mr. Stewart?
No, I think we've said it all.
All right. And I think that's the end
That's it.
for you.
Yes.
And thank you. Panel members, do you have a desire to take a 5-minute recess?
Whatever works for you guys.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay,
Awesome.
we will just take a 5-minute recess then. And I would like to call this meeting back to order. We are joined by a new applicant, Mr. DuPont, and we are going to our next property at 956 Chancellor Drive. And Mr. Valderrama, oh yes, please affirm, thank you.
Mr. Dupont, please state your full name.
Henry DuPont.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
And Mr. Valderrama, if you'd like to proceed with 956 Chancellor Drive.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-1536. The roll number is 030638220. The property is located at 956 Chancellor Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. I'm using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $11,447,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with a liability taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 2 buildings, 3 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1986. There are 90 suites with 90 outdoor parking. The property is zoned as C2 or community commercial. It has a land area of 151,841 square feet, a planned area of 31,660 square feet, a gross floor area of 94,204 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4, the next page, again, there are 90 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,250.33. It has a gross potential rent of $1,350,356. The vacancy rate is 4.2%, which is $56,000. It has an effective gross income of $1,293,641. The expense rate is 5.84% or $709,821. This leads to a net operating income of $583,820. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.1%. The capitalized income is $11,447,451 or $11,447,000 rounded. On page 5, I have a few rent comparables. The first one is located at 65 Paget Street or Paget Street. Its average monthly rent is $1,399. Next one is located at 100 Paget Street. Its average monthly rent per unit is $1,781. The third one is located at 1 Greyfriars Road. Its average monthly rent per unit is $1,231. The fourth one is located at 990. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,330. The next page is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the capitalization rate chart, and on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence, which was which we gone over a while ago in previous properties. On the next page, page 9, 11 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Dupont, you have questions, of Mr. Valderrama?
Yes, I do. Your comparables, page 5. The first two are newer properties. Would you agree they're not comparable? They're built 2008 and 2011.
In terms of effective year built, yes, they are newer. When I just looked at their suite mix, looks like they have 2-bedroom units, so I took that into consideration. And of course, I mean, it's reflected in the average monthly rent per unit, which is higher than the model derived 1,250 and 33 cents.
1 Greyfriars, that's a garden type apartment where each suite has their own exterior entrance. Would you agree with that?
I wasn't able to inspect that, so I wouldn't be able to agree or nor disagree on that question, Madam Chair.
990 Markham, I believe was renovated in 2014. Can you confirm that? In 2014, 2016, 2017, actually, yeah.
Able to confirm that without information.
That's all questions I have.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mann.
Yes, with respect to the page 9, the Chancellor Square reports the annual statement. To how many properties does this apply? Is this for the next 3 properties, or is it the next 4 properties?
I'm not sure, sir, if this applies to this property alone or to the next few. I do note, however, that our net operating income is at over $500,000, and so I'm not sure if this is going to be applied to this property alone or to the others as well.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Valderrama, I just have one question in regards to page 5 of your brief, your rent comparables. And your comparables 1 through 4. Are those model driven? Do you choose those yourself specifically?
I chose them specifically, Madam Chair.
Okay. I thank you. Mr. Dupont, if you would like to proceed.
Yes, so if you go to first page, you'll see it's a photo. Property, it's balconies, it's 3-story. And the map, aerial photo, you'll see my page 6. So you have all the chancellors there. And my income approach further will show that the 3 properties, part of that statement. If you can go to the income approach. First of all, we go to cap rate. So our page 11, this falls into the 1968 to 1998 low rise, and it's 5.5 cap rate. And that's the same cap rate we settle at municipal board for that age group. And the assessor is 5.1. So we dispute that. And then so the next page is the income approach spreadsheet. So in red, top left, it says it's combined statement for 932, 948, 956 Chancellor. So I believe we have also 948 Chancellor, but that one is not part of this. So we show the total financial statements, and here and there we will do the what is the amount applicable to 956 Chancellor. So it shows the 3 stories, 1986. Show the suite mix is 92 bedrooms. So it's 90 out of 252. I believe the other 2 also have all 2 bedrooms, except one, I believe, has one bedroom. So they are virtually identical, all built at the same time. So I show top right, the address is 932, 936. Chancellor has 78 suites, 948, 84, 956, 90, 252 suites. So we allocate on a per suite basis 35.71%. So line 1, we show the actual income received. That includes vacancy because they report the vacancy. Then they have some discounts. Sussex reports the caretaker discounts in that line 2. So to the right of the column, under remarks, you'll see that the city has a rent of 1101 for 932 Chancellor. The city has a rent of 1309 for 948 and 1250 for the subject property. So even though we have similar properties, the city has different rents for those 3 properties. So I show also below that the city overall rent for all the properties is $12.23. So we stabilize laundry at actual 2020, same as parking actual 2020, the miscellaneous at 3-year average. So under line 13, we take the stabilize and we apply 35.71%. So our EGI to compare to the assessor is 1124 for this property in particular, and that's much lower than what the assessor has at 1293. So the assessor is high on the income. Then we stabilize the expenses. Normal way, certain items we used 2020 last year, like insurance and utilities and taxes. Management, we use 5%, that's normal. The professional fees and office under, we use a 3-year average. So is advertising 3-year average. And waste and snow, we also use 3-year average, which is the standard also. Wages and benefits, we use the actual because part of that is rent, so you should go with the actual. So the only item that requires a bit of analysis, the repair and maintenance, we stabilize that at 1317, which is quite low per suite. We'll have that on the next page. If you go to page 13, it shows the revenues and expense, the repair maintenance. The first 4 items are items that are normally capital expenditures, except when it's for repairs. So roof replacement is disallowed unless it's repairs. And then for roof, they have 2020 546. We could have allowed that because that's a repair, not a roof replacement, but we did not. So these first 4 items, we did not allow anything. Waste and snow, they're categorized separately. Windows and doors and blue, we stabilized the 5-year average, relatively low, same as parking lot. We allow parking lot repairs. We don't allow parking lot replacement. These are low enough. It's $32 per suite stabilized, so that's relatively low. That would be repairs. Flooring, we allow the 5-year average, and that's $213 per suite compared to the maximum is $500. We got maximum by getting the costs of flooring and appliances and counters, etc., from K4. for 1 and 2 bedroom suites. We divided by 2 to get in between the suite mix, a 50-50 suite mix. Then we divided by 8 years. So if somebody's replacing more often than 8 years, you would exceed $500 a month for flooring. So this is half of the maximum. Appliance is close to the maximum. We've allowed it. Painting is less than the maximum. We disallowed in red plumbing, 78,000 in 2017. So we did the average excluding 2017, and building exterior, same thing. We disallowed 118,000 in 2017. So by adding each individual item that has been stabilized, we get to 1317 per suite. Then the R&M per suite, excluding the CapEx, the first 4 items, and excluded the waste and snow is shown there. The average for each year, 1,300, 21, 12, 14, 12, 5 years, 1455. So we've allowed 1317. So back to the previous page. Should we get the NOI from that? And we get the expenses, then we get an NOI. We divide 5.5% cap rate. So combined value gives us 30,300,000, and the assessors 35,047,000 for all 3 put together. Line 36, we show the value that we have for the subject only at 35.71. Then it comes to 10,820,000. So our value per suite for this unit is 120,229. I show value per suite. Usually I don't, but it's to compare to the assessor. The assessor will be a bit erratic for those 3 properties. So the combined line 35, the assessor has combined value for all 3 units, 139,000 per suite. And for this property has 127. The other thing we compare is that the city expenses line 31, the expense ratio they apply for 932 is 48.3, for 948 is 45.5, for 956, 54.9. So they have a very high expense ratio for this property and lower ones for the other ones. So they stabilize 54.9 for subject, and we stabilize expenses line 32 at 47.1. So we're less expenses than the assessor, expense ratio than the assessor. Because we go site specific on all properties. So this should simplify the reports for the next 2 properties. If we stay with this group, 948, 956. So that's my value for this property, and the other 2 properties should be a lot quicker. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Balderrama?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Mann?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
So Mr. Dupont, there was a lot of renovations on this property and the next 2 proceeding, correct?
No, I don't see renovations. I see the roof was replaced.
Yes.
And then 1 year had high plumbing, 1 year building exterior. And so that's not really renovation.
Mr. Balderrama, were there any permits taken for this property?
I wasn't aware of any, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if there are any.
All right, I thank you. That's all my questions. Any wish for summation from either of you?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Mr. Dupont?
Yes, the small one. So the nationally we go site specific, and the assessor on 3 properties, different expense ratio, different rents. We should not allow that. But the main issue, or one of the main issues, is the cap rate. And 5.5 is the cap rates we have from our cap rate study, and I believe in the cap rate evidence that the assessor for the mid years are pretty much in agreement with Altus. Their comparables are very similar to ours. Nobody has comparables for the older pre-1946, and we have a disagreement on the newer properties, 1999. But the mid age range, 5.5, we usually are in agreement. So thank you.
I thank you. We will move on then to 948 Chancellor Drive. Whenever you are ready, Mr. Valderrama, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-1532. It has a roll number of 03092994315. It is located at 948 Chancellor Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using a reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $13,494,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with a taxable liability. The property is a residential apartment with 2 buildings, 3 stories, actual and effective year built of 1985. There are 84 total suites with 84 outdoor parking. It is zoned as C2 commercial with a land area of 117,617 square feet, a planned area of 1,737 square feet, a gross floor area of 89,211 square feet. On page 3 is the of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 84 units with average monthly rent per unit of $1,308.59. The gross potential rent is $1,319,059. It has a vacancy rate of 4.2%. A vacancy, or in terms of dollars, that is $55,400. It has an effective gross income of $1,263,659. Applying the expense ratio of 45.54%, the expenses in terms of dollars is $575,470. The net operating income is $688,189. The capitalization rate is 1%, or applying the capitalization rate to the net operating income, the capitalized income is $13,493,902, or $13,494,000. On page 5 are some rent comparables. I believe these are the same as the previous property, Madam Chair, so I will just proceed. And on page 6 is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7, the capitalization rate chart. Page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. Page 9 to page 11 is the 2020 expense information for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
I thank you. Questions, Mr. Dupont?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Knapp?
I do have a question with respect to the expense ratio of 45.54%. This property is the sister property to the one we just did at 956 Chancellor Drive, is it not?
I believe so, sir. It is.
They're built within 1 year of each other. They have a very similar suite complement, right?
Almost the same, yes, correct.
Yes, but I'm wondering why this expense ratio is 45.54 or 9.5%, 9% roughly less than the one at 956 Chancellor Drive. Has there been some renovations or repairs to this that would reduce the expense ratio?
I am, again, this is a model derived expense ratio, so I wouldn't be able to determine what caused the reduction in the expense ratio compared to the previous property.
Okay, so it's model, it's not taken from the actuals or from the income mailer, it's just model driven.
Yes, it is model driven.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
And I have no questions, Mr. Valderrama. If you would like to proceed, Mr. Dupont, with your brief.
We're 9:32 now, right?
9:48.
Oh, 9:48. Okay. Okay, so now we get different photo, I guess, from the page one. Still very similar. And the aerial photo will show where it is compared to the other ones, which would be page 6. And then the income approach, we have the same dispute on cap rate. And the income approach is page 12. So we did it the same way as the previous property. We stabilized the combined, and we did the 4948 Chancellor line 13. We compared the rents. So we're 1,049,960 versus the assessor 1,263,000. So we compare that. So their rent are about 20% higher. The expenses, line 32, we're 47.1%. The assessors are 45, so they're lower than us this time. The last time they were much higher than us. So then we divide by 5.5 cap rate, and we get the value at the bottom, 10,099,000, and that's 120,000 per suite. And for subject, the city is 160,000 on this one. So the city is quite high on this one on a per suite basis, possibly due to the rent and the expense ratio being different. And that would be my submission. Thank you, that's all.
You're back.
Okay, we're still live, so, oh, I just happened.
You just froze for a few minutes.
Okay, how are we doing this year? Okay, so I'm not sure where they cut off last. You might need to get them the last 2 messages. I think we caught them pretty early in that one.
We were just frozen there for a few minutes. Or you were frozen. Can you hear us, Mr. Dupont?
Yeah, okay.
okay.
I don't know who was frozen.
So we were frozen in our boardroom, so we'll just need you to probably repeat the last minute or two of your presentation there.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I was on the income approach, page 12. Shows compares the line 13, the effective gross income. We're at 1,049,000 versus the assessor 1,263,000. So the assessor's rent's much higher on this one. The expenses, line 32, we stabilized at 47.1, and the assessor's lower, 45.5. And our value, the last line is 120,000 per suite, and the assessor is very high at 160,000 per suite. on that one. So the average for the whole complex, the assessors are 139,000, but they're very high in this property. This one in particular of the complex, due to, I guess, higher rent than another property here, and the lowest expense ratio of the three. So that's my submission.
I thank you. Mr. Valderrama, did you have any questions?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, did you have questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mann?
I don't have any questions, thank you.
I also have no questions regarding this. Did either of you have a wish for a summation?
I have none, Madam Chair.
No, thank you.
All right. We will then move on to 940 Chancellor Drive.
Well, how about we do 932 for stay with the same complex?
Yeah, I think, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll move on to 932 Chancellor. I know we're going out of order, but they're all sister properties, so if you'd like to proceed, Mr. Valderrama.
Yes, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-1528. It has a roll number of 030638000. The property is located at 932 Chancellor Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $10,106,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 2 buildings, 3 stories, an actual and effective year built of 1986. It has 78 suites with 78 outdoor parking. It is zoned as C2 or commercial with a land area of 139,662 square feet, a planned area of 27,820 square feet, and a gross floor area of 82,084 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 78 units with an average monthly rent per unit of 1,165 cents. The gross potential rent is $1,030,208. It has a vacancy rate of 4% or $43,269. It has an effective gross income of $986,000 or $986,939. It has an expense ratio of 48.29%, which is $476,593. And the net operating income is $510,346. The capitalization rate on this one is 5.05%. Applying that to the net operating income, the capitalized income is $10,105,861 or $10,106,000 rounded. On the next page, page 5 are some rent comparables. Again, they are the same rent comparables as the previous property. And on the next page is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. On page 7 is the rate chart. And on page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And on page 9 to page 12 is the 2020 income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. DuPont, did you have questions of the assessor?
No questions.
Ms. Duncan?
No question.
Mr. Mann?
And just with respect to the cap rate in this sister property is lower than the cap rate in the other two. This is a model driven cap rate, or was there an adjustment made?
It is a model driven cap rate.
Okay, thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you. And my question was asked and answered. Mr. Dupont, if you'd like to proceed with your brief.
Okay, so the first page, photo, looks pretty much the same. Then the aerial photo will show where it is in relation to the others. And then the income approach. Page 12. So we stabilize the same as we did for the other two, line 13B. So the applying the allocation at 30.95 for this one, our rent is 974 versus the assessor 987. So on this one, we're relatively close. And the expenses, we stabilize at line 31, 47.1, and the assessor higher, and that's at 48.3% on this one. So the NOI, line 33B, we're 515, the assessor's 510, so we're actually a little bit higher than the assessor. The cap rate, the assessor is a bit lower than the other two. They're 5.05 and we're 5.5. So our value would be 9,378,000, and it's 120,000 per suite, same as the other two. And the assessor's value for this one is 129 versus 139 they have for the whole complex. So that's my submission.
I thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Questions?
I have none.
Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
No, no questions, thank you.
I also have no questions. Any wish for summation by either of you?
None, Madam Chair.
None for me.
Okay. I thank you both. Then we will move on to 940 Chancellor Drive. Mr. Valderrama, whenever you're ready with your brief.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-1515. Number of 03063810,200. The property is located at 940 Chancellor Drive. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $10,257,000. It is a residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 2 buildings, 3 stories, with an actual and effective year built of 1983. It has 84 suites with 101 outdoor parking. It is zoned as C2 commercial with a land area of 115,688 square feet, a planned area of 24,149 square feet, and a gross floor area of 72,447 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. There are 84 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,088.44. It has a gross potential rent of $1,097,148. It has a vacancy rate of 4.2% or $46,080. It has an effective gross income of $1,051,068. It has an expense of 50.72% or $533,102. The net operating income is $517,966. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.05%, the capitalized income is $10,256,752 or $10,257,000 rounded. On the next 5 are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 2295 Pembina Highway. has an average monthly rent of $1,179. Next one is located at 2945 Pembina Highway. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,346. The third one is located at 33 South Park Drive. The average per unit is $1,160. And the last one is located at 990 Markham Road. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,330. On page 6 is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. Page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And on page 9 to page 13 is the 2020 income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Dupont, any questions?
No questions.
And Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Knight?
I have no questions. Thank you.
And I also have no questions. Mr. Dupont, if you'd like to proceed with your brief.
Yes, so first page, you'll see a photo. It's also a low-rise balcony, it's a wood frame. Then the aerial photo shows next on, well, we have a map also showing it's near the Bishop Grandin University Crescent. Then we show it's on Chancellor on the top property of the 4 top right. The income approach, the cap rate with the same as before. The assessor 5.05 or 5.5 based on our cap rate study. Then the income approach follows on the next page. So that's page 14. So that's a spreadsheet. So here we have the potential gross rents. We have the discounts that it has. We stabilize at the actual line 3, which is slightly less than the assessor. We allow the same vacancy as the assessor. Laundry and parking are actual 2020. Miscellaneous income 3-year average. And the expenses, we stabilize at normal 2020 for insurance, utilities, taxes, and 3 average for some items. And the repair minutes are done by our own separate analysis. Will be next page. But nevertheless, line 33, we have a similar net operating income. We're 514,900 than the assessor's 517. So we're only 3,000 off. So it's mainly a cap rate dispute. And we state that 2020 was settled at the municipal board at 5.5. So the next page is the repair and maintenance, page 15. So the first 4 items in red, these items tend to be CapEx unless they're just repairs. We did not allow any of them, even though they had some expenses each of the years. Windows and doors happens quite regularly, so we allowed that. The 5-year average, same as the parking lot repairs, we allowed that. Every other item, we allowed the 5-year item, the 5-year average. And that comes to $21.55 per suite repair maintenance. You see flooring is at $277 per suite, which is half of what the maximum would be. The same as painting counters is less than the maximum. So they're doing it on an ongoing basis, but less than what a 8-year life would be. So back to page 14, we take our net income divided by 5.5 cap rate, comes value 9,363,000 versus yes, 10,257,000, mainly a cap rate dispute. So that's my submission.
I thank you. Mr. Balderrama, questions?
I have none, Madam Chair.
Ms. Duncan?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. Mann.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I also have no questions. So we will move on to 780 Osborne. Mr. Balderrama, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-1568. It has a 001383200. It is located at 780 Osborne Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $1,089,000. The property is classified as a residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 3 stories. It has an actual year built of 1923 and an effective year built of 1959. It has 14 suites with 8 outdoor parking. The zoning for the property is residential multifamily with a land area of 7,132 square feet, plan area of 2,610 square feet, a basement area of 2,610 square feet, and a gross floor area of 10,440 square feet. Next page, page 3 is where the aerial photo of the subject property. On page 4 is the income valuation summary. There are 14 total units with an average monthly rent per unit of $724.69. The gross potential rent for the property is $121,748. The vacancy rate is 3.2% or $3,896. Excuse me. It has an effective gross income of $117,852. The expense ratio is 47.3% or $55,779, which leads to a net operating income of $62,073. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.7%, the capitalized income is $1,089,000 rounded. On the next page 5, there are 4 rent comparables. The first one is located at 1014 Corridon Avenue. Monthly rent per unit is $814. The next one is located at 291 Stradbrook Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $8. The third one is located at 253 River Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $859. And the last one is located at 294 Stradbrook Avenue. Its average monthly rent per unit is $772. Next page is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Next page, page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. Page 8 is rate evidence. And beginning page 9 to page 11 is the 2020 income and expense information. That's my presentation, Madam Chair.
I thank you. Mr. Dupont, questions?
The effective age, you have it 1959 and it's built 1923. So what made you change the effective age?
I didn't specifically changed it. I believe this was caused by a renovation on the property, but without any without checking the permits on the particulars on the renovation, I wouldn't be able to say the particulars of it or the details of the renovation.
Now you compare your rents, your page. 5. So the rent you compare, the first 3 are 55, 61, 54. But those are actual ages. They're not properties with effective age. Is that correct?
The effective year built was used for the comparable rents. However, I just couldn't determine if they are renovated or not.
Did you answer that they were actual ages, not effective ages for those three properties?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And the last comparable 1979, 20 years newer, so you would agree that it's not comparable?
Well, based on the unit mix, suite mix, it looks like it is. It's within the same market region, so I chose it as one of the comparable.
That's all questions I have.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Matt?
Just with respect to the renos and permits, I appreciate you can't tell us when the renovations were done. Is there an indication in your file as to when the last inspection was done?
I don't have that information ready, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My questions have been asked and answered. Mr. Dupont, if you would like to proceed.
Yes, so the first page would be the photo. You can see it's an older property, no renovations from the outside. And then we can aerial photo, I guess doesn't show much, shows a little bit of parking in the back. So I count 7 parking, 4, 5, 6. We showed the map of the area, so it's probably all know where it is in Osborne. So the cap rate, we page 11. So we show it as part of the pre-1946 because it was actually built before then. In 1923, the cap rate that we had for 2020 settled with the assessor of 6.1 to 6.6, mainly because their cap rates were 6.1 to 6.6. We would go to the high end if there were some negative features, and low end 6.1 if there was not negative features. So then we, below that table, we say the features that we have that we consider for the cap rate is that first one is a wood frame building. So you got this brick exterior, but there's still a brick that's attached to wood frame, and the floors would be the old wood floors, the creaky floors. The rent level is low, $713 average per suite. So then they're not rents of a 1959 building, and I'll show that to you later. The parking is inferior at 57%. Suite size is small. Gross floor area per suite is 746 per suite. Then you have the corridors on top of that. Suite mix is inferior, 29% bachelor, 71% one bedroom. There's no 2 bedrooms. So because of the factors, we put it at the high end at 6.6%. Then page 13 is the income approach. So we show a top and middle, the year built in 1959. We say 1923. So we put it in the age group pre-1946. We have the gross floor area is 10,440, same as what the assessor shows. So which is 746 per suite. At top right, top is the negative factors that would affect the cap rate, which we went through in the previous page. And it shows the suite mix there, 4 bachelors, 10 one bedroom. And then line 4, the remarks. We have the CMHC rents as of October 2020. We would have that in the appendix. So the first column, pre-1940 for the bachelors, they're 640, and the one bedroom 814. The average at the suite mix, if we take 4 of the 640 and 10 suites at 814, we would get rents of 764. That's the average. for pre-1940 as per CMHC, yet the subject is getting only 713. And if you were, if we were using the 1940 and 1959 age group from CMHC, it would be 819, and we're not, we're 713. For you CMHC for Fort Rouge would be 927, and we're not, we're $200 less than that. So based on the actual rents the property is receiving is not acting like a 1959 or 60s building. It's even lower than the CMHC or pre-1940. So it's on the low end. So we stabilize actual rent, line 3, which is after vacancy. So section includes the vacancy in that. So the actual rent may be around $750 and after vacancy. And they also have some discounts, which is usually a caretaker discount. So the actual rents would probably be closer to $750, which would be closer to CMHC average for pre-1940. We had lodging, parking, expenses are done in a normal way. Actuals for some items, averages for others. Repair maintenance, we stabilize $12.52 per suite. It's relatively low based on actuals. And line 33, the net income, we're very similar to the assessor, 61,000 versus the assessor 62, to where $500 off. So we're mainly a cap rate argument at this point in time. 2020 board revision was 6%. This time around, we're asking for 6.6, mainly because of negative features. And other remarks, we have, we say the effective age, they had an effective age in 1968. Since at least 2012 assessment, we disputed that in 2016, so the assessor reduced it in 1959 for 2018. And we continue to dispute it.
Mr. DuPont, I'm sorry, I'm just going to stop you there. We are not going to hear what previous board agreements were. Thank you.
It's not an agreement. The assessor reduced it for their assessment. So the assessor is being reducing the effective age.
I'm sorry, so the assessor gave a recommendation?
No, it's how they assessed them.
Okay.
And we were disputing it prior to that. Then the next year, the next reassessment, they dropped the effective age. So they've dropped the effective age before. You can read these remarks at your leisure. I believe what happened in the past is something to consider. We try to avoid as much as possible anything about the previous assessments. I know the board doesn't like them. We just bring that up once in a while when we think it's necessary, and the effective age is relatively important. So I'll skip that. So we go to page 14. To repair maintenance shown. It's relatively simple. We disallowed the 4 first items. We allowed small items for windows and parking lot. The flooring replacement is lower, much lower than the maximum. So is appliance replacement. We allowed the 5-year average. And we just knocked at the bottom. Low flooring and appliance replacement. So it's certainly not. That's another reason why you should not have the effective age, because it's has a low flooring and appliance replacement. Maybe sometimes in the past it did something a long time ago, and the assessor changed effective age since 2012. So they've been reducing the effective age since then, and I believe that based on CMHC rents, we should be using the actual age now. Give it a cap rate 6.6, and so that's my report. Thank you.
And I thank you. Mr. Balderrama, did you have any questions?
I have none, Madam Chair.
And Ms. Duncan?
Yeah, I just have one. It's a 78-year-old building. Are you aware of any upgrades to like services or infrastructure? I mean, I can't imagine heating systems and all the other systems to keep it operating and shingles and all those things, that there was never any upgrades since 1923. Are you aware of any?
Well, that's the thing with any older apartments, even those built 1959, they don't have the same flooring, they don't have the same boiler, same roof. So all these properties have to replace their roof and boilers every 20, 25 years. They have to replace the windows every now and then. So I'm sure since this property was built, has done something like that. So in 2016, we showed they spent 27,000 for the roof. I can actually go back to the previous assessment if you want to see if they done other. Actually, in the past, 2020, we did not use the 5-year spreadsheet for repair maintenance. But I can look if you want.
No, I was just curious as far as effective date, that you would think there would have been some change since 1923, and that was some of the areas I thought might have kicked in, but that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm saying they always do. It should be expected. It's not the original boiler and roof.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller?
I do have just a couple of questions. Mr. Dupont, when was the last time you inspected this property?
Never did.
Okay, I'm looking at your pictures on page 48. There's 3 pictures here. I note that it appears as though they're post-reference. I was going to ask if these renovations were done prior to the reference date or if they were done post-reference, or can you answer that?
What renovations are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about the new kitchen. That's not a 1923 or even a 1959 kitchen, the bathroom, the windows, things like that. Can you tell me when those were done?
So you're looking at photos that I have?
Right. Yeah, that page 55, page 48 of your brief.
Okay.
They look like they're from a leasing advertisement.
Yeah. Yeah, so the kitchen cabinets and the bathroom cabinets do not look like 1923 for sure, but they're still not up to current standards, so they're still older. And you can see it has no dishwasher. It has very small kitchen, very little cabinets. The argument for effective age is that the assessor applies that only in a few instances. Every property built in 1959, 60, whatever, will have had some updated, especially when there's a turnover. So you will replace the flooring and the counters and cabinets on an ongoing basis. So this one has not done so in such a way that it should change the effective age.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. So, Mr. Dupont, you feel the effective age should be 1940, correct?
Pre-1940 should be the actual age. So for cap rate, compared to the CMHC does not have 1928, it has pre-1940. So based on that, I think the actual age, 1923, should be used to value the subject property.
Okay. But you yourself did not inspect the property?
No, I'm going with CMHC rents, and I'm going with the photos that they have there. That's not a renovated property in any way. It's a normal thing for people to change the flooring and the appliances and kitchen cabinets over time.
Okay, so you're talking about the bones, the actual structure of the building, correct? Being
No.
Well,
no, the structural, which would be the exterior, structural age will be 1923. There's some properties, structural age in 1923 would be totally renovated on the inside. So the
Right.
effective age is a combination of structural and improvements inside the property that would change its age. And that would bring it to the same level as 1959 apartments. That's what the assessor is saying. I'm saying the rents are not at 1959 levels. Whatever they have done over the years has not, if the Shimichi, if they had higher rents in Shimichi, maybe I would not be arguing the effective age, but they're much lower rent than Shimichi. For the 1959, they're pretty close to what the Shimichi rents are for pre-1940.
Did you discuss the condition of the building with your client?
No.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. Do either of you have a wish for a summation on this property?
I have none, Madam Chair.
None for me, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And we will then proceed to our last property at 400 Osborne. Mr. Balderrama, whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last property has a file number of 22-1459. Numbers 12-020-007-200. The property is located at 400 Osborne Street. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 using April 1st of 2021. The assessed value is $9,324,000. The property is classified as an institutional property, and the liability is taxable school exempt. The property is a residential apartment with one building, 7 stories. It has an actual and effective year built of 1996. It has 53 suites with 56 outdoor parking. It is zoned as commercial community with a land area of 72,658 square feet. The planned area for the property is 10,896 square feet, and the gross floor area is 70,332 square feet. On page 3 is the aerial photo of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 53 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,391.06. It has a gross potential rent of $884,714. It has a vacancy rate of 3.2%, or $28,311. It has an effective gross income of $856,403. Has an expense ratio of 41.75%, or $357,548. The net operating income is $498,855. Applying the capitalization rate of 5.35%, the capitalized income is $9,324,393, or $9,324,000. On the next page, page 5, are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 333 Wellington Crescent.
I don't
It's
dispute
average.
your rent, Ryan.
Okay.
I don't
Proceed.
dispute your cap rate either. Sorry.
That's okay, Mr. DuPont. He's just going to proceed with his brief.
Okay, sure. So I'll just quickly go over the rent comparables. I have 4. Again, the first one has average monthly rent of $1,406. Next one, located at 850 Cambridge, its average monthly rent is $1,482. And on page comparable is located at 605 River Avenue. It has an average monthly rent of $1,301. And the last one is located at 180 Roslyn Road. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,547. Page 6 is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. Page 7 is the capitalization rate chart. Page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And beginning page or on page 9, sorry, is the 2020 income and expense information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Madam Chair.
I thank you. Mr. Dupont, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And I have none at this time either. Mr. Dupont, if you'd like to proceed with your brief, please.
First page is the photo, and then I'd like you to go to the appendix, page 21, which is the ad that put out by Sam on this property. It shows the features there. So it's a life lease. Then it has a map, and after that has the suites, the floor plans. Sorry. So the floor plan is shown there. To the there they show the first one, the bedroom, 1 bedroom plus den. Then have each of the sizes, which is pretty good that they have that. Now the den or slash bedroom is 8 feet 1 inch by 9.9. So that's very small. 10 by 10 is small. Usually you need like a 12 feet to make it a relatively good size. Master bedroom at 12 by 11. That's the size of usually a second bedroom, so it's not overly large. It's not bad. The kitchen is small, 8 feet 2 by 9 feet. And the balcony, believe they say 12 by 6, but the 12 is only on one side, and the inside, because it's on an angle, the inside is actually 8.5 feet. So it's a small balcony also. The living room, fairly good size at 12 by 21, so that it's a good size. The next one is the 2 bedrooms, so which would be page 27. So here they show the 2 bedrooms. Then I have the comments. So it's 930 square feet plus balcony. There again, the kitchen is small, 9 feet by 9. Living room is good at 13 by 21. The bedroom den is also very small, 8 feet 9 by 9.5. So if you want to use it as a bedroom, it would be a very small bedroom. The master bathroom is very small, 5.7 feet. So it'd be kind of cramped in there. And the second bathroom is 5.7, is also small. The balcony is 12 by 6, but there again, it's at an angle, so it'd be only about 8.5 feet on one side, so relatively small. And 2 bedrooms, 2 baths is the next one, page 28. And I put down the also size, so the kitchen is small, bedroom den is very small, a little bit larger, 8 by 11.5. But 8 feet wide is very, very cramped. In the master bathroom is not bad now, 5 feet by 9. And the second bathroom is very small again, 5.7. Then it shows the financial statement, shows our notes in red, so how we categorize all the items for repair maintenance and the reserves. So page 30, these are the items they have for reserve for replacement. What they usually throw their appliance and flooring in there. I believe we have 1 year missing. And the prior year, the financial statements, so if you go to page 40, That's the replacement reserve fund. So all properties that are has anything to do with CMHC have to have some kind of a reserve fund, so they have to make put money to reserves for these items like appliances and counters, etc. So for that page, we have 2018, 2017. So that's my appendix. So if you go to the income approach, which is page 13. So you can see line 13, we don't dispute the income, though the assessor's effective gross income is quite high, $13.91 per suite. But the subject rents are close to that for 28, well, including their miscellaneous income. But the line 8, they're getting 805, and some at 96, the assessor 856, was not that far off. So that's why we allow use the assessor's rents. We're slightly below that. For expenses, we stabilize the normal waste, certain items at the 2020, some at the averages. The repair maintenance is the reserves are the one we do the analysis. Line 30 taxes, we calculated that as CC20. So we had the municipal board precedent saying that when they're school exempt, we should use a class code 20 because we use market rent, we should use market taxes. So the next pages, 14, we have the repair maintenance stabilization, which is separate from the reserves. You have some years missing, 2018 is missing. 2018 doesn't have each individual item that has the total. So when we do the averages, it's 4-year average because the 2018 is not there, so we don't use 4-year average. So different items are stabilized different ways. So general buildings, we exclude 2017, 2019. That's what we stabilize at. Flooring replacement, they're not shown here. They'll show them in the reserves. Appliance replacement is shown here. It's very low. 331, they'll also show up in reserves. The painting, we maxed it 225, which is close to the 4-year average. Elevator, we removed the high year 2020. The rest we used the 4-year average. So we stabilized at $14.58 per suite. That's for the repair maintenance before the reserve items. And the next page, 15, is the reserve items. So for the windows and doors, we use the 4-year, or 3 years average now, because they have 2 years they got missing. Different types of statements, different evidence they provide. They have another one, a green turnover. That's when the suites come vacant, but they don't see what they did for turnover. We allow the average for that. Flooring replacement, relatively low, 183 per suite versus 500 maximum. Appliances are relatively low, so 53 per suite versus the maximum. We allowed that. Counters and cupboards, we allowed that. There again, relatively low, $53 per suite. HVAC, we disallowed the high year, 20,000. So these individual items that we stabilized come to $614 per suite. We showed at the bottom the capex, the automatic suite, the capex and waste and snow. What the average, the 1499, 1343, 348, we stabilized 614. And those are the figures that go into an income approach to page 13. The repair maintenance goes on line 27, and reserves goes on page 29. There again, we had a precedent decision at the municipal board 2018, where both the assessor and Altus agreed to allow reserve items like the appliances, employing the same as other apartments that we allow. So we only dispute the expenses. So the actual expense ratio, line 32 is shown there at above the 50, which every year, the average 51.4, we allow 53%. And the assessor is quite low, 41.7% expense ratio. They're model driven, we're site specific. That's my report. Thank you.
I thank you. And I would just like to state for the record that Mr. Story's previous information in regards to Altus's cap rate study and the arguments he brought forth are carrying forward to Mr. DuPont's presentations today.
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Valderrama, did you have any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair. On line 30 on page 13, real estate taxes.
Yep.
It was stabilized at $110,414. Is there a reason why this was used instead of the actual what do you call this? Actual realty taxes at $98,763?
Yeah,
That
page
was
11.
reported.
Yeah, at page 11, I showed the calculations and I forgot to tell the board that. So page 11, we calculated the taxes shown based on CC20, based on the residential one, as if it were an apartment and not school exempt. And the reason we did that is that the assessor and Altus went to municipal board in 2018 on the case 333 Vaughan, where the assessor and the board we all agree. We asked the board that they actually give a decision and not just a settlement, because we wanted that to be precedent. And the board did issue the decision on that, saying that the class code 20 taxes should be used when you have school exempt. Because when you have school exempt, it's usually because you have subsidized rents. We always use market rents. And the argument is that if you use market rent, you should use market tax.
So is the 333 Vaughan also assessed as a 40 in terms of the classification?
Is it also, it was school exempt? Yeah, but it was 40, yes, it was school exempt. So that particular decision on Vaughan, that's where the assessor agreed to reserve for replacement. That's where the assessor agreed to class code 20. And we each had a report. We went to the board and we had a hearing at the board. And we asked the board to issue a decision to have the force of a decision instead of just a settlement.
And how about the just a question also on reserve expenditure, line 29?
Yeah.
640.
Yeah.
Isn't that under R&M already? Wouldn't this be a double expense?
No,
No?
the owner shows certain items under repair maintenance. And as I showed you, they had 0 for flooring, they had 0 for appliances under their expense. And then they went with those items under reserve. So they're not double counted. So it's they show it in 2 different places.
That's just my question, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Duncan, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Mr. Mann?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
I also don't have any questions in regards to this property. Gentlemen, any wish for a summation?
I have none, Madam.
No summation, thank you.
Okay. I would like to thank you both for your presentations this afternoon. And all the items have been heard on the docket this morning. And this hearing is now closed.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.